Okay.
Good to go?
You.
Great.
All right, good.
Thank you
All
for
right,
the
so we'll
TV.
get started. All good?
We're recording, it looks like it.
All right, so it's, let's see. 7:02. So I'll call the meeting to order. This is the third budget hearing from of the Board of Finance. Today's Thursday, March 12th. On tonight's agenda, we have the headline act is the Board of Education budget. And then we'll follow that up with a few leftovers from our previous meeting that we carried over related to the finance revenue and finance real estate items. But before we get started, we'll start with Mr. Myers, do you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So with us tonight, item number 3, the Board of Education, we have our superintendent, Mr. Mike Heater, the Director of Finance and Business Services, Frank Terry. We also have the Board of Education Chair, Jen Pinelli. So thank you all for joining tonight. We'll just turn it right over to you and let you lead this out.
All right, thanks for having us here tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to present the budget. Before we begin, I'd just like to say for all the new members and those of you who have been on the board previously, it's the fourth time I've come before this board. Seems like just yesterday that I was here for the first time. Just to say that we try to be as fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars as possible. Just to remind everyone, I've never come before this board asking for money in any previous years. I think we've done a really good job as our team in presenting a budget annually that reflects the needs of the district in order to maintain strategic investment in student success in the infrastructure of our district. So I just want to start by saying that. Next slide, please. Just a little overview. If you're not aware, we have over 9,000 students in the district, 17 schools. We have over 1,000 active certified teachers and staff members. And last year we hired 53 new certified teachers for this coming school year. So our retention rate, as you can see, is quite high. We provide an opportunity for folks to come here, invest in our community for the hard work that they do. As I just said, we try to, when we start the budget process in the fall, we want to maintain a balance between growth within the district and also efficiency. So as we gather our asks from our departments and our schools, we go through them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that anything we add to the budget, if it's critical to the success of the school or the department, we try to find offsets. Rather than just continue to add and add and add to the budget. So we spend a lot of time over several months ensuring that we come to the town with an ask that is reasonable and that will maintain the high quality service that we provide our students and our families here. So given the numbers of certified and uncertified staff, salary and benefits comprise 78% of the total budget. Over $191 million is salary and benefits. Therefore, any significant impactful reductions to the budget request likely come from the salary and budget benefits category. The challenge is compounded by the fact that 81% of all overall FTEs are teachers and paraprofessionals. So they work directly in classrooms with students. Which again, any cuts to the budget most likely impact the experience of our students. Just to put a little context here, staff salaries increased for the coming school year is $4.4 million. There's a benefits increase, which we'll talk a little bit about in a later slide, is almost $3.4 million for an overall increase of a little over $7 million. This increase is after reducing the district's budget by almost 11 FTEs from last year's budget. Transportation, the district is contending with an 18.5% increase to our transportation contract. This is unavoidable as it is contractual. After reductions made by the Board of Education, we'll note that the increase to transportation is currently going to be assumed at about 11%, which provides a little bit of risk in the budget, and we would reconsider that if there was a restoration of any of the reduction that was in the first select person's budget. Try to maintain as much as possible, because we do have some exposure in the cuts that were made by the Board of Ed. We're gonna do our very best to consolidate and routes and run transportation as efficiently as possible, but it is a challenge that we continue to face. We're even making moves and consolidating routes as we speak. We notified parents in the last couple of days of some rerouting for the remainder of the school year because of low ridership. We also have included major maintenance projects that invest in safety and security improvements. Just to remind those of you who were in the Board of Finance last year and those that are new, last year, our major maintenance projects were removed to be bonded for. So that created a little bit of a cliff. We, again, are asking for what we normally asked for in the past, about $500,000. So that is going to be reflective of an increase, of a significant increase from year over year because of the bonding that was done last year. And there are increases to tuition for out-of-district placements and special education. This is not a problem that's unique here in Fairfield. This is a statewide and nationwide problem. You'll see in a future slide that our out-of-district placements have been reduced and continually drop year over year, but we're not seeing the savings because tuition costs continue to rise and outpace any increases that we're finding from bringing kids back and not sending kids out. Next. Teachers' budget, the budget continues to provide funding for negotiated teachers contract. We're entering the third year of a 3-year contract that was negotiated back in 2003. And this contract provides a 2.12% cost of living increase at the top step. Put that into context, we have about 42% of our staff that are at the top of the pay scale. So any increase up to the top step has a significant impact on the overall salary and benefits line. As mentioned in the increased context slide, the district has included major maintenance projects. We also have curriculum enhancements. We're purchasing new instructional resources for math, specifically for our Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry classes. We just recently adopted a new social studies curriculum, which was long overdue. The last revision of the social studies curriculum was 10 years ago. And we also have some more investments into the language. Continuing the delay of any purchase of these research resources will just shift the cost to future years. And the budget also includes increases to our professional development and curriculum writing summary objects. As you can imagine, with new curriculum, we also have some curriculum for next year that we'll be presenting in family and consumer science. We need to allocate time and money to our teachers over the summer. We also have mandates and service needs that we can't avoid. A lot of this comes driven through either federal or state laws. And as you're all aware, when the state passes new requirements, they're usually unfunded mandates. And the burden is then based on the local school districts and the local towns to fund those mandates. The bulk of the increase to tuition for outplaced students comes from special education. This matches the state trend of increasing special education costs, but is necessary for the district to support students who we can't support here in the district. We also have to transport our students. It's necessary and unavoidable, and we're trying to manage these costs, as I mentioned, through efficiencies. The last couple of weeks, we were able to take 4 buses off the roads starting on Monday, which will get us some savings for the remainder of the year. We're getting some pushback from parents. It's going to add a little bit of time in the morning for students to have to get to the bus stop 15 minutes earlier. But at the same time, we're trying to consolidate our routes to make sure that we're running buses that have more students on them. I'm sure you've seen buses around town, especially our high school buses that have a very low number of students. We're trying to combat that by, again, consolidating routes, which will extend them a little bit, but they're still within a reasonable amount of time. And then the state partnership plan originally estimated increases of 13 to 15%. We modified the budget proposal, you'll see in a future slide, to reflect what we found out a couple of days ago, which was 11.5% plus a 1% premium for Fairfield County. So it'll come in at 12.5% for next year, not the 14 that we budgeted for. This will yield a savings of a little over $491,000. So that's a positive, and we were expecting that to come later in the process. But we were notified and we confirmed with the office up at the state, Sean Scanlon's office, that number is solid. So again, we looked for a lot of efficiencies as we went through the budget at the superintendent level, again, at the board level. As you probably saw, the board asked a lot of questions around the budget that you can refer to in the budget document. And we thought that we could make some reductions in the transportation line. We're continuing again to look at ways that we can save some money. I think I mentioned at the Q2 report, we're looking to pre-purchase, if possible, some Chromebooks rather than wait till the summertime, because we will save a significant amount of money based on what we're getting from our vendors, that the costs of the items are going to go up exponentially. Just whatever's going on in the world, those costs are going to be then now shifted to the consumer. And utilities, our partnership with Synergistics, with the presentation at Tuesday night's board meeting. Hope you all get a chance. We'll put a couple of slides up tonight, but if you can get a chance, the board asked a lot of really good questions to our representatives from Synergistics. And I think their response will be a lot more informative to this board than anything that we can do here at the table. So as we started from the beginning of the budget, there was some reductions at my level, a little over $3.2 million. We cut about 1.3 million, a little over in salary and benefits. That's the reduction in FTE. A lot of this was done through attrition. No one lost their job, so I just want to highlight that. In the instructional division, we were able to save a little over $425,000. IT, over $400,000. Personnel, over $380,000. At my level, we were able to cut $330,000 from the transportation line. Maintenance, we looked for some savings there at $234,000. And then through our work with Synergistics, electricity, we saved over $129,000 in additional reductions. At the board level, we made some more reductions at that level. The Board of Education reduced. We're able to find savings in salary and benefits of almost $164,000. Contracted services, a little over $23,000. Made significant reductions in transportation. This is where I think we have a little bit of risk. Restoring some of the money that was reduced at the first select woman's level would be helpful, because we're a little hesitant on this, but that was $648,000. And then we were able to reduce at the board level another $145,000 in other purchase services line, which is almost $1 million in savings at the board. So in the town budget, we saw total reductions of after, again, taking into account the pension reduction that we found after it was at the board level of $487,000, a little over that. The new health insurance numbers, and then what we'll save if we pre-purchase the technology and Chromebooks in the next couple of weeks. That gives us a total reduction of $1.155764. which leaves us $844,236 that we'll be asking the Board of Finance here to reinstate, which will give us a little cover if transportation doesn't plan out the way we thought, and if there's any unencumbered, unanticipated maintenance and possible special education costs. Just to touch a little bit on special education, because the district's done a lot of work over the last several years in providing in-house services. I know you've seen this slide, most of you in the past. We've updated it just to plug in current enrollment in our programs, and also as our early literacy academy has now scaled up into middle school and pretty soon into high school, and factoring all the extra costs in tuition for out-of-district placements. Our cost avoidance through our in-district programs is over $22 million. So that's real savings by building in real good programs here in-house, where students get to stay with their peers in their neighborhood schools and take advantage of high-quality teaching and learning services that we provide in the Fairfield Public Schools, rather than sending them off to a private placement where we have no idea if they're going to get the level of care that we provide here in Fairfield. So this slide again reinforces what we've done to try to reduce the number of outplaced students. You see this trend going upward statewide. It's going downward here. So that's a testament to our teachers and our special education department, our service providers, ensuring our parents that we can provide high quality services right here rather than to seek out of district placements, where we're seeing that in a lot of districts across the state. Building a strong foundation starts in our our ECC, our Early Childhood Center. We've expanded locations now, as you can see. We're now at Ward High School, Stratfield Elementary School, Holland Hill. We've expanded to full day programs. We have 6 full day classes with an extensive waiting list. For this current school year and moving into next school year, we've already started a waiting list for what we call the 4+ kids. These are the students that in the past would go to kindergarten. As you're probably aware, the state changed the law somewhat a couple of years ago, where on September 1st birthdays and on, there's a waiver process now to enter kindergarten if you meet a certain criteria that is set by the district. They just passed into law in the last couple of weeks. That will be a hard date starting in 27-28, so there is no more waiver. So any student born September 1st to December 31st will have to wait another year before they can go to kindergarten. Now, I'm not sure what that's going to look like budgetarily for the following year. That's going to increase our full day ECC demand. I'm sure that we'll have an obligation to provide them with a full day program. And I'm not sure what that's going to do, since the children are spread out over 11 elementary schools for kindergarten, if that's going to be able to shift some of that staffing to pre-K or not. So we'll wait and see. Transportation is something that's now begun a statewide discussion. We're trying to see if we can ask the State Department of Ed to take a look at transportation costs, as they have been with special education costs from out of district placements, to see if there's anything that can be done, because the rates continue to grow year over year. It's getting unsustainable. Continue to see 18, in some cases up to 25% transportation increases across the state of Connecticut. We want to create a caring and safe learning environment for our students and our staff. This budget includes various upgrades where needed. Upgrades to we want to upgrade and modernize district security system, expand our video surveillance coverage and system integration. It's very helpful to us in many situations that we rely on these camera systems for a number of things, especially risk management. Update our software, improve monitoring and response, replace deteriorating exterior steps to improve safety and accessibility over at Riverfield School on the playground. Install ADA compliant railings and walking surfaces, replace worn cafeteria flooring at Ward High School. and eliminate trip hazards and others, improve daily safety at Riverfield and other schools as well. Of course, energy savings that matter. So as you'll see with the synergistics, our kilowatt hour base year, we were at 0.152 per kilowatt hour. In 24-25, electricity increased to 0.228. So there's a 49.7% increase to the kilowatt hour costs. Heating oil has increased as well, 6.75% increase, and water has increased almost 7%. So, yes. So, sorry, decrease in water, sorry. But as you can see, turning the lights on is obviously a necessity running our day to day, but the increased costs need to be offset by being responsible as well. So through our synergistics contract, all the work they do, they've estimated that they've saved the district almost $1 million in the time they've been here. And that's a significant cost for the investment that we've made. And they continue to work with our staff, our custodians, our maintenance folks to try to find more efficient ways that we can operate our buildings. And as they talked about, it's about running our equipment responsibly, optimally, also looking at how we can be responsible when buildings aren't occupied compared to when they're occupied as well. So please, I really urge you to look at that because there's no way I can do it justice. And then here's the why. I always talk about the why. Why do we invest a significant amount of dollars into public education here in Fairfield? I think I've said this in the past. I'm sure you'll get a lot of emails from parents. People moved here for the schools. They don't come here for the nightlife. They don't come here for any other reason but the quality of life for raising a family here in Fairfield. And that starts with our schools. It also incorporates our public safety and our Parks and Recreations Department. And these investments, obviously, we get significant outcomes. Not going to read all of these to everyone. I'm sure you can see it for yourself. But these are tremendous, tremendous accomplishments, especially the last one here on the slide. We had for a record of 7 schools of distinction here in Fairfield last year with 17 distinctions. And that's significant. That shows a lot of growth and a lot of progress that we're making in what we're doing here in our schools. That's, again, a tribute to the town. We invested a lot of money a few years ago into our new literacy program. We're seeing significant growth in the last 2 years. I'm proud of the work that our educators are doing. We connect the community through art, our arts, and you'll see in the next slide, our music programs are the significant part of our community. But that takes money. It takes investment. It also takes highly trained educators. And we continue to do that here in Fairfield. Again, through trips, through exposure, through grants, through professional development. This all doesn't happen by accident. It's done purposefully and intentionally. Next. I know everyone's here has experienced some sort of concert or performance here in the Fairfield Public Schools. If you haven't, we have some upcoming drama shows this weekend over at Fairfield Ludlow High School. I encourage you to go out and just see the tremendous talent that we have here in the district. Again, it's intentional, it's thoughtful, it takes money and it takes an investment in the public education system, into our music programs, our art program, into our literacy, and our math. We educate the entire child here. And of course, athletics in action. Fairfield has 140 teams, over 1,700 athletic events, 239 coaches who work, mentor, not only coach, but mentor our young people. We had 52 class of 2025 students to go play in college. We have 169 3-sport athletes in Fairfield, 473 2-sport athletes, 932 single sport athletes. So over half of our high school population plays sports, and pretty much almost 60% participate in athletics. Again, There's a slight increase to our athletics budget, as you saw in our proposal, and that's because the prices, costs continue to rise. Officiating, transportation, uniforms and equipment. We continue to expand offerings. And we want to continue to do that because it provides, as you know, all the benefits of teamwork, sportsmanship, time management by participating in athletics. So overall, assuming the partial restoration, our budget ask is 5.04% for a total of $244,788,760. That's assuming a restoration Board of Finance levy will put up to 44,000. As you know, next steps, we're presenting to you folks here today. You have the power to add it to the budget or reduce the budget. Obviously, we don't expect that. And it'll go on to the RTM where they only reduce. Hopeful that by investing in our academic excellence, our staff, our school safety, facility maintenance, we align today's resources with long-term stability and sustainability. Thank you. I really appreciate the time. I look forward to any questions that this board may have.
Thank you for taking us through that one presentation as always. And I'll just open it up to the board.
Thank you for coming. Just want to run through the numbers. So I know you guys made some cuts that you went through at the Board of Ed level. And then when you presented your budget to the first select person, she cut $1 million. I believe.
Well, originally 2 million, and then we had pension savings, which reduced it to about 1.5. And now with the new insurance numbers, it gets us to about, as we said, 844 and change with the pre-purchasing if we're able to get the Chromebook. So about $1 million is cut, correct?
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask. So the 491 went to offset that.
Yes.
So the ask for reinstatement is 844.
Correct.
Okay.
236.
Okay. And then with transportation, there was an email sent out a while ago to ask parents if they wanted to opt out. And I was one of the parents that opted out.
Thank you.
But then I got an email today telling me that my son's bus route has been changed, like you mentioned, like there's communication going out. So I was confused. If I opted out, why am I getting that email?
I can follow through to see why. We only had about 90 parents through that outreach that opted out. It didn't really amount to any type of savings, so they may have just in error may have left you on the bus by mistake, but or you're off the bus but still in that communication group. Most likely that's what it is. That parent square doesn't align with the bus transportation routing or Infinite Campus, so you're probably just still in the group, not necessarily on the bus anymore.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Matola.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you tell us today, and I know this could change, what is the expected projected surplus for this year? And I know things can change, but it was like $900,000 at the last quarterly. Do you have a number, Frank, where you are today approximately?
Yeah, so just with that, usually we'll start running reports at the end of March and then doing deep dives with departments. So I won't have a really true update for.
Get it.
I could say with snow, we're currently actually through the last storm and with just some purchased salt from the town, about $450,000 over. So that 460 may need to come up a little bit. Assuming we go through with the purchase of the Chromebooks, that's another 250,000 that we would need to cover for that purchase. And then, you know, transportation is still, I looked at those numbers, those are still in a deficit there. So we'll have a update as of Q3. And then special education, they thought it would go up a little bit. So like I said, if you assume the Chromebooks, if it's 900,000, 250, maybe 300,000, less than that as of the information I had with Q2. And then
Just we'll have a reduction.
What would that reduction be?
That was the 170.
How much?
100, it's about, sorry, what is it, 174,000?
Yeah,
You'd save $174,000 if you did it now. All right, and
Well, if we get them now, we save, if we got them now, we'd save 90,000. We're saying next year, if we buy the Chromebooks now, and we would save for Chromebooks by 170.
yeah, so that is a possible savings for
So
next.
that's what we assume.
yeah, but that's what we assumed here to get to the 844.
You did assume that.
Yeah, see, in the reductions, we put the pension, the health insurance and the Chromebooks. That got us to a little over 1.155. That's why the ask back is 844.
Okay.
We took that down.
What's your, you don't know. I looked at 10-248A. I'm sure you guys kind of had that in the back of your mind. That's the unexpended education funds account statute, which allows you or to basically create a non-lapsing account. Have some money left over next year. Have you had any, oh, it's early, have you thought about that, possibly doing that?
We talked about that, or again, we have those purchases of textbooks, which would not create any cliff, that we would either buy the textbooks and then come back to the town and say, could reduce by that amount for the budget for next year, or give it back, whatever it was. Well, we wouldn't know that today, but if we found after.
Vote in May. a little-
Yes, exactly, correct.
That's what I'm
our
saying.
intention.
What I'm saying is this, and I'm not being critical, because I think in the past, when you've had some extra money, you would, and I think rightfully, go make a purchase of something because you
Like the
figured,
Chromebook.
like, yeah, but even things that I don't think were originally you were thinking of purchasing, but had some extra monies and to save money in the future, you would say, let's make a purchase of whatever, books or home books or whatever. So, and I know you've got some criticism about that, and it's not for me. I think it's probably a smart thing to do. I'm not saying you're gonna do it this year. I guess what I would say is you probably, just be very cognizant that that's probably not a good thing to do for this year. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's a real tough budget year. And if you have some surplus that we can roll over into a non-lapsing account to help, that should be part of the goal. And I know we probably won't, this may be more of an RTM issue because you'll know more then.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out.
I've talked to the first select woman, and we've talked about, and the conversation was around the textbooks. But, I mean, it would be 6 of one, half a dozen of
Yeah, I get it.
saying it, put it in an account, and then from the account buy the textbooks, but that is the intention. It's not to go off script or anything like that and go off and purchase something that we didn't have in the budget and we were thinking about and then come through the back door. That's not the intent.
I think just to supplement what Mr. Testani is saying, what we've also talked about is creating that non-lapsing account for special education costs. Because those are volatile, and we've seen years where there have been overages there. And so I think that would be a good opportunity to provide some stability in the out years where we could cover overages if needed without having to come back to the town for more money. I think, I'm always cognizant of creating, but I don't like to use cliffs, but everybody. But I just believe in creating a budget that's stable year to year. So that's also what I think about when using money from this year to offset the next year is something I think about as well.
Yeah, I get it. This year's a little unique though, just for obvious reasons we don't have to get into. I have another question about a different topic, but your hand was raised.
Just on this, just relating to that, because we talked about this a little bit. So Frank, you mentioned using the non-lapsing account and sort of specifically using it for special education costs.
I believe it has to be designated for a specific, like you can't just keep It's not like fund balance, that's unrestricted.
Well, that's my question, because I would think if it's just sort of there and can be used for anything, there would be reticence on your part to take it, because then you think, okay, well, next budget season, we're just gonna get asked to use our fund for that. But as it's contemplated, it could be restricted for a specific use. So I think that's a.
Well, just so we're all clear, the statute says it needs to be used only for educational purposes, which can be, that's kind of a broad statement, because.
But it's not uniforms.
No, I get it, but.
It could be textbooks, it could be special
Exactly.
education.
Right.
So you guys could designate it, the Board of Education,
Right.
central office could designate, this is what this fund is for, and then it cannot be accessed for other use in the.
If we didn't use it to pre-purchase the textbooks, I think what Frank's saying, the special education probably be the smart place to put it, simply because the numbers are always volatile. We have families moving in throughout the year, and a lot of times they say, we come here because of the programs that you have here. We're well-known providing great in-house programs that support children, and they come throughout the year. We had a family move in a couple of weeks ago, and again, they came here specifically because they know they have a family member and the nephew and the whole deal. So, which I think is great, but again, it brings unexpected costs that we don't budget for all the time.
Mr. Rock.
4 questions. And I had my kids in Stanford and specifically came here for the school. It's the best.
Not the nightlife, huh?
And not the nightlife. It's best thing we ever did. So I am that person.
Yep.
That you speak. Board of Ed reductions for transportation. Okay. Said there's a lot of risk there. 650,000, give or take. What is the number that you would say is not risky? How do I get rid of risk? Is it 500? Is it 550? Is it 400? Like how do we take the risk number out?
Well,
I know it's sort of hypothetical, but
Angelus and I, for example, were talking this afternoon about this. The secondary level, specifically the high schools, the middle school buses are pretty strong. Elementaries hit or miss, depending on the school and the routes. We did a better job this year. We did over enroll buses at the elementary level, middle and high school level. I think we hit it nailed it right on the head in middle school. We did much better than previous years in elementary. For some reason, high school is just something we can't get our arms around. 500, 600 and some odd thousand seems like a lot. I think we do have maybe half of that is risky.
okay. It's a fairly significant number. Okay. Let me go to trends in special education, outsourcing, that sort of thing. Are lawyer fees included? There's a lot of mediation that goes along in that. So when we're looking at that, what does it look like in 5 years? It looks like you have a trend line that's going down. Does that continue to go down, or does it, what does it look like in the next 5 years?
Good question. I mean, the trend statewide, nationwide has been going up. We're going down. We're working really hard with families to demonstrate that we can provide at least the same that they're looking for in an out of district, if not better. And I think we've done a good job in demonstrating that we can do better. And that's why we see the numbers going down. I don't know if it'll continue to trend downward. I'm hoping to at least stay flat, plus or minus, but again, it's just really going to depend on we can continue to find and retain high quality staff, because that seems to be the driver. It's when you have a building where special education teacher turns over, the school psychologist turns over annually, where you're outsourcing and contracting for speech language services. I think those are the things where start to get instability, and it trickles down to this progress of the child. We've been really good the last couple of years in maintaining stability in our staffing. Where we did have some issues, we've been able to stabilize and retain folks in those buildings. And a lot of the issues have not completely gone away, but they've been mitigated because of the consistency of the staff we have. So
Is there anything in this budget that can be pushed by a year? And not, is there software, is there any sort of purchase that can be pushed by a year that really wouldn't impact? I know it's all important. But is there anything you can?
we've gone through everything several times. Mr. Matola's question, depending on where we land with a surplus, I think that's what we're hoping for, to try to offset the $844,000, but we.
And of course, the last question is, what if we don't? What happens in your world?
Brock, could you say that again?
What happens if the board decides not to restore? What happens?
We're gonna have to really go back and have some really difficult conversations.
What those conversations sound like?
It really comes down to staff, really. I don't know where, I can't really say now, and usually I don't like to do that because I was part of a school district for many years. Would put out the hit list, so to speak. And it causes a lot of hysteria, and as we get into hiring season, we don't want to jump ship if they think that their job may be in jeopardy. So it's kind of hard to say at this moment.
And the board hasn't discussed it yet.
Got it.
Mr. Elwanger.
A couple questions about staffing. I think I heard you in a prior meeting, and you're anticipating about 20 retirements, give or take.
Yep.
Next year. Would they all be at the top of scale and then replaced by new teachers coming in at a lower salary, or not necessarily?
Well, it depends. Depends where the retirements are. So if they're retiring from special education, school psychs, speech language pathologists, music teachers, physics, chemistry, all the retirements will be at the top end, the top of the scale. All the replacements will not be.
And when do they have to give you that notice?
So they can retire at any time.
Anytime.
We do have an incentive in the teacher's contract that was negotiated in 2023, that if they notify us by November 1st, when we start building the budget, that there's a monetary incentive. So since November 1st, those notifications, as of now, we haven't got any additional. That doesn't necessarily mean we won't.
So you had 20 then? If that's where you get your.
I think we had 19.
19, okay, fine.
The budget does make retirements to.
Sure. Now, you also indicated that you reduced the initial ask to by 10.5 FTEs. Does that all teachers? I thought teachers were only going down by 9.
Some, we had administrator, we had clerical, we have a variety of those.
In the appendix of the Board of Education budget book, we did add a supporting schedule for the decreases, so we can find some information there as well.
Good, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
I had a question, another couple of questions. Page 70 in terms of.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Move on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Jane. Yeah.
Yeah, so on the attrition, so this relates to the scheduling presentation you had, which I watched. It was very good. I have a question about how it relates to your estimate for attrition. So you've got now 11 FTEs budgeted to STEAM/gifted. STEAM is being retired, but presumably those folks are gonna land in vacant spots or fill some of the attrition. So let me see how it asks. To the extent that those current STEAM teachers are on a higher pay scale, what does that do to the $1 million or so of attrition?
It lowers.
It lowers it. And that was not known until basically this week. So this assumption's a little bit too high probably, right? So the budget's a little bit bigger than we're, slightly bigger.
Yes and no. I mean,
why now?
Well, we started looking this morning to see what the pay scale, if any reductions came from that. If the elementary schedule does in fact eliminate STEAM from the schedule, what those folks currently make and what.
Well, I'm just asking, I mean, I'm really asking to see if it's need to look for more. I mean, I want to understand, like, is this a little bit short? Because from what I'm gathering is those, I think I mean, I know the STEAM teacher at my school. I know another one. I think they're pretty experienced teachers, so I'm assuming they're farther along in the career, higher up in the pay scale. And I'm also just from watching your presentation, it seems like as components of STEAM get folded into science, maybe there's another position that has to be created.
Correct,
right?
correct.
So, and this is all just new, like post you creating the budget.
Yeah, we haven't run all the financials on what the impact of changing the schedule would look like. It could increase some FTE in the art because we're expanding that in the earlier grades potentially. So, and to your point, there may be needed support elsewhere, but yeah, I mean, we're being conservative in our ask for restoration, and trying to be responsible.
Let me just ask one more thing on that related to the presentation. One of the things that really struck me in watching that was, what you put up there about proficiency. And I know that it's a town-wide thing. I know we have some award-winning schools, but just for everybody else on the board, I don't know if how focused you all are on it, but the proficiency wasn't there. It was lacking. And so we're now having in the elementary schools a pretty significant shift to the curriculum, which I think is the right move to account for, I guess over the years, you guys have over allocated time to the schedule. But as a consequence, the core classes have received less time. And I guess you correlate that to this proficiency issue. Is that?
Well, there's a lot of factors, but yeah, ensuring that there's a consistent delivery of high quality curriculum is important to our student growth and achievement. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, because we other departments come in here and we say, what do you need? The police come in, what do you need to do your job as great as you can? And pretty much the board says, okay, take what you need. So do you think that is funding an issue for you to get to the efficiency level? Is that impacting it? Because you did a great presentation and I know the schools are great because I have kids in them and I'm glad that you tout everything great that you do. But now's a great time to say, like, do we need more money to be able to get to, the 80% proficiency or wherever you want to, what the right target is. But I gather it's below where you think you would want it to be. And I bet it would be below where everybody else in this town thinks it is. I think we have this perception that we have these, super scores and we don't. And so, how much is budget an issue for you?
I think a little bit. It's budget, it's how the money is and the resources are allocated. To your point, there are some schools that may not need as much as others in terms of intervention, for example. Some could use more than they currently have based on the performance of the students. So yeah, I mean, it's money, but it's also allocation of the resources as well. Again, I think we made a great decision a few years ago in our whole philosophical approach to English language arts and literacy at the elementary level. That has been a game changer. But again, it requires time, as you heard. It requires a significant amount of time to ensure that all the components of the literacy program and how kids learn and what they learn and when they learn it is done, and it's done with fidelity. And now we're looking at other content areas as well to ensure that they have the dedicated time and our teachers have everything they need, and time is a big one to make sure that the curriculum is taught and taught well and taught consistently across all 11 elementary schools, for example.
Mr. Elwanger, I want to go back to you.
Okay, thanks. On page 70, conference and travel. What are you doing year to date? 190,000.
Yeah, it's called conference and travel. There's not a lot of travel in there, so to speak.
I can look it up if you guys want to go to another.
Okay, and I guess looking at the FY 27 budget of 93,000, I think that's net of a reduction from what I believe used.
Correct.
You made a comment about the 45,000. It's still an increase of 100,000. What do you anticipate need to be incurred for such an increase for next fiscal year?
Trying to remember exactly what driving that.
I'm just wondering if there's room to cut some more there, that's all.
Yeah, I think the cut that the Board of Ed made, it was what we could afford to cut out.
That was 45,000.
Yeah.
That brought it down to the 290.
Correct.
And it did include funding for the Regional Youth Adult Social Action Partnership.
Yep.
And it included funding for Wilson Level 1 training for sped teachers, professional development for speech and language pathologists. So there's some additional.
We're required to provide restorative practice training to all our staff, and we're doing it through cohorts every year. The old RIAS app now called Catalyst, so that's where a lot of that is.
And this is separate from professional development. Conference would be.
Yeah. This is the way the budget book has been written. We kind of follow the same format. Yes, correct.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
So over the years, that number's gone up and down. Is that because on certain years you have to?
Certain years, there's more.
More,
Yes.
you're required.
Right, and we make adjustments accordingly. That's why we don't just maintain a flat number. Yeah, trying to be.
It's not like an average of 3 years. It's a specific number you think you need for that particular year.
Correct.
Sorry, Bob.
No,
That's okay.
So we're on track for that 190,000. Year to date, we've spent about 118,000. We have encumbered 63,000, so there's about 5,000 worth of revenue for this year in that.
My other question had to do with technology capital. It's a new capital expensive. 50 Promethean boards, 50 workstations, ISP hardware. And those are all adds. They're not in the fiscal year budget. They come up to about $400,000. How much are they needed and can they be deferred?
those were deferred from last year. That's why they're back in the budget this year. This is replacing aging and smart boards that are dying, old boards that are dying. But these are instructional tools that the teachers use daily. And last year we made a significant cut to try to get the number down. So this is just, again, as we mentioned in the slide presentation, just putting it off another year. Here's, it pops back in this year.
Jim has.
Yeah, Mr. Myers.
Hi, how are you? Just quickly on the page 19, there's an administrator position at Tops Hill. That's the only elementary that has that. What is that? What is that position? Pretty much everything has like an admin principal, admin assistant principal, but one particular school has an administrator line.
This may be a classification. We could look up.
Yeah, we could look at why Osborne Hill has, just like every other school, they have a principal and assistant principal. There's nothing additional.
It's unbudgeted.
That was,
It's
yeah,
not budgeted in there.
I think it was for,
this year, Prior.
it was for 25, 26. It looks like they didn't have the principal that year.
Okay.
They had an administrator.
Okay, so it's this year. not coming. So is that one of your reductions then? Is that?
No, the reduction was here at central office. We reduced the special ed coordinator who moved into a vacant assistant principal back in December, excuse me, at Riverfield. And just after careful evaluation, the department head felt that we could do without the position, so we didn't fill it.
Okay, and then on page 22. Are we adding a position for Assistant Director of Finance?
We reassigned a position, so we reduced one position and reallocated to that position. Actually, we've reduced 1.5 positions to reallocate.
So, Frank, maybe you could just describe your department? How's that?
Yeah, sure. So, my department oversees accounts payable, payroll, insurance, and schools. We have a school services person that helps us out as well. The deputy director of finance, it was a position that really was there. It was reallocated from a different, from just a different area in the book. And that position will, on the day-to-day thing, filing 941s, W-2s, assisting. She was the interim finance director. She's probably one of, everybody should be, thank you, Terry, because without her, you probably wouldn't have a budget book to look at. And she has over 20 years of experience as a school business administrator, and she's a great asset to the team. And I think what's in the budget is adequate for what the office needs, and also the experience. And also there's no benefits included, so it's just straight salary for her.
Okay, so this is a +1 to the finance department.
No, it's a net zero, because it was in the finance department. I could get you the object that it is in.
Was there a person? The budget, there might have been budgeted, but there was an actual
It
person.
was a person, yeah.
Okay. If we could just look at page 165, high school class sizes. So in this, you're comparing Ludlow to Ward. Ludlow looks, I guess, okay compared to Ward, so kind of just focused on the number of sections that are less than 15 for math and English. At Ward, at 21. English, less than 15 kids. The maximum can be 28. We have less than 15 core course. This isn't an elective. Math, we have 15. The Ludlow, we have English. Math, there's only 6 and 5. I don't know. But significantly higher at Ward. Can you give some color as to why that would?
Well, so it's a core subject area. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not an elective math course, but we look at the class sizes several times during the year, so it could be 14 kids spread across those sections. There's definitely not a number that's extremely low, but the issue becomes if we start by looking at after the school year has started, closing down classes, number one, you risk going over contractual limits in some sections, which would then cause you to have to open a section anyway, which would be back to where we are today. Possibly you could get a 0.2 savings, but then again, the teacher would leave because no one's going to stay as a 0.8 unless they request it. It is something that we will look at very closely in the coming weeks as scheduling is going to start to move into the phase of building the master schedule after all the course requests have been gathered to see if there could be any potential reductions. But we also have in math at both schools, we're reducing a math coach already in the budget, which will then be required. They'll have a job in the district. So there's many factors to that. Right? We're running pretty efficient, even though those numbers may seem to be telling a different story. But again, combining courses, class sizes could jump over the contractual limit, which brings us back to where we are today.
Okay, and then finally, on page 6, looking at the staff salaries, which is big nut of this budget. I had a little bit of pause when I read the first sentence where it says overall teaching staff is increasing by 4.56, even after a net reduction of 9 FTEs. Okay. I did look at the numbers in terms of certified staff, and I do think the 4.56 is overstated because I really think you need to include the degree changes line, which is at 135, because the degree changes is their salary. It's
Yeah,
just
that's-
being broken out because I think last year it was such a big number. You really wanted to show that to the board because it was a big nut to swallow. So even when I add those two together, it looks more reasonable. It's 2.8, but it's still higher than the 2.12 contract, right? We're reducing FTEs, which I gotta believe some of those reductions. Are you showing the reductions, those FTEs in these lines, or is it being shown someplace else? And I would need to deduct that. Because just logically, you would think that if you're reducing FTEs and they only get 2.12% increase,
Top is getting 2.1.
you're saying because the other ones can get the other step changes
You're
increases.
getting general wage increase and step.
Okay,
That's what's driving it up. The top's only getting 2.12, but again, 2.12 at the top,
yeah,
top of the scale, in some cases are.
bigger dollars than the
Right, they're big.
step changes of the smaller ones.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Some of the folks, if you're moving a step and possibly a salary lane, it could be upwards of 12%,
Okay,
depending on where you are in the salary schedule.
okay. All right. Well, I do want to point that out to the board because that number jumps out and you don't want that, so I think 2.8, and I'm sure there's other numbers I could have done here, but that was the most significant number, was adding that degree change to that top line. It made that 4.56 a little bit closer to the 2.
You're saying it's double counting, like it's.
No, he's saying
It's overstated. It's not, this number should be including the degree changes because degree changes is salary, just.
okay, great. Mr. Matola.
On page,
Can I just hop on that?
yeah, sure.
But the degree changes for fiscal year 25-26, that was just anticipated. That wasn't necessarily, that 18 number for last year, you didn't make budget for 25-26, did you? The $1,875,923. That was anticipated.
Yeah, we almost got the whole thing.
Elsewhere in the budget, it looks like they hit 1.5 million of that, and then there's like 300 budgeted for this.
Unfortunately, for purposes of this analysis, comparing to that budget, it doesn't matter if that was the actual number or not.
Well,
That's the,
I'm
I'm
not-
just making a point of the percentage and not what the actual number really was. I mean, I'd love to see what the actuals are, and then I can compare budget to actual, and then I would really know when it's going up, because that would make a ton more sense. But
But I do think taking into account the step changes on
That- I
top
mean,
of.
that's what brings it.
That's where it comes.
That's where it is.
Yes.
It's the step,
Exactly.
It's the step.
each step also is getting a general wage increase on top of it. So if this year you're on step 6 and we'll say 50,000, and then step 7 is 55. 55 next year is now 56, and so that's where it's all coming.
That'll make sense. Yeah. Did I see other questions? Mr. Matola?
Yeah, page, I don't know what page it is. It's your, staff salaries, which has a, for this current fiscal year, your full-time FTE total is, it's in the budget book, states, 1543. Is that Currently today, how many full-time employees do you have? I asked the question yesterday in the Google thing, and I asked yesterday, didn't get an answer, but that's okay, because I only asked it yesterday, but where are we now today for this fiscal year with respect to your FTE total for everything? Because your budget book said the modified FTE for this fiscal year is 14.93. Have you had to add to that or reduce it during this year? Frank's shaking his head. Is that a no?
We have, right now we have, like, for example, we had a teacher that's resigning in 2 weeks. We had it posted. I think the rec for hire went in yesterday, so anything that has been lost through a resignation, for example, is being replaced this year. Yes.
Has anything from this figure 14.93 for this fiscal year, have you had to add more staff over and above that number?
No.
Okay.
Well, excuse me, one, because we had, a student enroll at North Stratfield School that brought us over the class size, so we had to add a teacher to support for the board policy.
And that happens, that could happen any year.
It happens all the time, depending on where we're at and who moves in that particular grade level at, I mean, it's like crapshoot, just happened, but it's fine because next year that kindergarten class moves up. That teacher now has 6 months to get to know the kids and will be part of that for the next year. That section will now be already in place and we'll have a teacher that's ready to go.
Thank you.
Follow up, Mr. Penley?
Yeah, I guess just sort of to tease that out, the on 164 where you have the enrollment for the elementary schools. So for this is, maybe just explain this to Mr. McCullough. So for the classes that are at threshold. Osborne Hill. So when it says it's at threshold, like there's three classes in third grade that have 25 students.
Correct.
So let's say one more person comes to third grade. Does that mean that it gets a whole class? Is that what you're, okay?
At the beginning of the year, if someone shows up in February, you know.
February, technically, we should. We don't, no.
I know
Well,
you
we-
don't.
You hire the teacher to work with the grade level. And then, well, that teacher, if necessary, the following year, all those kids move to the next grade, no one leaves, then we'll open the section for the next year. If not, that teacher will be absorbed into a vacancy.
There's a few places where potentially that could happen.
Based
You're
on the
projecting,
projections?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But, and so this would be like completely new hires or again, going back to the presentation that I saw a couple nights ago, it seems like there's gonna be some people looking for chairs.
There possibly could be, and then there'll be obviously the possibility that we haven't planned for is, that's at the threshold, but we still don't, the projections are great. We don't know what's gonna happen with the housing market, who's coming in. Again, it's very specific to, like you said, the school and the grade level. So 10 elementary kids can come into the district depending on where the seats that they're gonna occupy. It may not have an impact on sections. If we get luck of the draw, 10 kids could trigger 6 sections, depending where they go.
The number, the class size is something that determines, or it's a state rule?
Board of Ed policy.
Board of Ed policy.
Mr. Elway?
Electricity utility costs. It was a terrific presentation. I watched.
Oh, good.
Board of Ed meeting. Got the deck. And you had mentioned expected 12-month savings of about 900,000. So how does that translate in foot to the budget on page 98? Does that mean that where you budgeted for this fiscal year, 4.9, almost 5 million? That under 500, or
No,
how do you realize that
Frankly,
savings of 900,000?
I think if you budget the savings in, it would have been
You
fine.
budgeted for the savings.
right, we budgeted, that savings is based on the base year, the increase in the utility costs, and if we had done nothing, what the costs would have been had we not taken all the measures that we've taken.
So they come to you then, synergistics for FY 27, saying, here's your anticipated savings, and that's the number.
They work with
Into the
us,
budget.
they work with us. I think one of the things that is an unknown, as you heard in the presentation, is that we have 3 schools that will be coming online with new HVAC. We didn't have prior. I think that's still an unknown, but you would think that it wouldn't have a huge impact, but depending on the weather,
Sure.
it's gonna take a little while. I mean, they've done a good job, our contractors, balancing and working through the system, but again, a little hesitant to.
And then help me understand on page 188, how the rates, you had a slide on utility rate trends. I think that he was 49.7, 0.8. It looks like you're at 0.271 as a total electric rate per kilowatt hour for the budget year, which is significantly more than 0.8 actual in 25. I realize that was a year ago, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I think when they did those, they were pulling for a data set that that data was September and it was December, so. I can say that the numbers that we have in here are based on utility rates and usage and what moves.
and are they what we're experiencing now, or you've baked in a?
It's, it's a function of volume and unit price. So, I could go back and kind of look at those specifically, but just based on this, it's basically the unit price is going down, but the rates may be going up, and that's why you see it increase. So it's not gonna foot exactly to what the rate increases because you have the volume. That's a factor in the calculation also.
And you are anticipating some savings next year in utility.
Yeah.
That's gas, electric, and water, I guess, all 3 combined, or is it just electric?
I think it's all in that utility.
Yeah, it's all
All
Yeah.
3.
all
So
encompassing.
where's the savings coming from? Probably not electric.
Well, if they're talking, if the electric bills continue to
Right.
rise as they're
Yeah.
saying, I mean, again, that's where I think we have some risk. But at the same time, we're gonna continue to work as you listen to, our synergistics folks to try to see as much as as they said, they took the low hanging fruit. And now it's really trying to do the hard work, in building good habits with our staff. Looking at occupied to unoccupied. Fortunately, some of our buildings are occupied a lot more than others, especially our high schools. They're not the most efficient since they have old systems. Some have parts of the buildings have no systems. This is a difficult. Do the best job we can trying to anticipate what our budget's gonna be when it comes to utilities. I think it's a perfect science to this.
Mr. Elwire, can I follow up on that? Yeah. And I did watch the synergistics presentation. I thought that was very good. They spent a lot of time talking about the savings. We as a board have been asking for a while to better understand how that program's working. And I appreciate that you identified that it's almost $1 million savings a year. So it's certainly a well-worthy program, but I am curious, they talked about quantity of the savings, but could you just take a step back a little bit and just talk a little bit about how they're achieving those savings? Are they going around replacing light bulbs? Are they recommending changing to modernized HVAC systems, or what steps are they taking to actually generate this savings? Are they negotiating a power purchase agreement at a lower rate, or what is it that they're doing?
Well, I think they have a team of folks, engineers and, people, again, that I don't quite understand what they do probably, but that gentleman is in our buildings every day, every evening. They do an assessment of our infrastructure, our boilers and systems. Make sure that everything is, preventative maintenance is being kept up with, that we're turning thermostats when the buildings are occupied, unoccupied, making sure that
He's not walking around turning thermostats down. Is he putting a system in place that would now put a timer on these things, or what is it?
he works with our custodian and maintenance staff and gives them the recommendations as to what they should be doing. And working with our folks on our controls, recommending where we, as we're replacing and what to do, what to use, how to set the thermostats at different points, when to turn them on, when to turn them off. I mean, the guy's in the building at 1 o'clock in the morning. He's there 7 o'clock at night. He's doing things that we don't have anyone on staff that would be able to commit to something like that.
How long have we had them providing this service? Start with them.
Year and a half.
And did you guys get quotes from other firms, or how did you land on Synergistic?
Angelus brought this forth.
A lot of companies that provide this service. I'm just curious how we
We
landed.
reached out to a couple of districts that use them. Hamden had just renewed the contract to go with them for another 5 years. So Milford, I believe, used them. Quote me, I think it's Milford or New Milford, but I know the big one. I spoke to the folks in Hamden, and they were extremely pleased by the experience they had, the monies they were able to save, and that's why they were with a couple of others.
Did you get quotes from other companies, or was it a bid process, or how did you guys?
I don't believe there was a bid process.
There's a big dollar amount for this contract, right? What are we paying them for their service?
I don't have that number offhand, Frank. You have?
Obviously, net, it's their savings, their cost for their services is less than the savings that.
That was the carrot, that if they didn't achieve the savings, they would write us a check for the shortfall. So if it costs us, $500,000 and they saved us 490, they would write us a check for the $10,000 so that we wouldn't be in a loss.
But if they save us 900,000 and it costs us 890 and we net only a $10,000 savings, they're reaping the benefits of this savings, not the town, right? So it's
Well,
important.
we do, well, no. They saved us $10,000 that net 10,000, correct, but we wouldn't have gotten the other 890 without them either. We may have tried to do things, but if we would have could have done that, we would have done it ourselves. I think it's.
There's no question that whether it's Synergistics or Johnston
Correct.
or other companies that do this and they are creating savings, I just want to make sure that whatever savings we are able to achieve, we're not then paying it back to them so that they're the beneficiary of the savings.
I get what you're saying.
So it would be really important to understand what the terms of that contract with Synergistics are. How much are we paying them? Is it a 3-year contract, a 5-year contract? Things like that. So
Just
Mr.
to follow up with that, because I guess conceptually, I would expect that this would be like a 2-year program where they kind of train our janitors and whatnot as to how to improve the efficiencies and give us all the new gadgets that can maybe automate the controls. And then we kind of don't need them anymore, and we would get the long-term savings from that point on. Maybe the first year, it's maybe it's a 90-10, and then it's 50-50, and then it's 100-0. I don't know.
Great.
I'd like to hear more about it, like you said.
Yeah, if we could get more details about, one, how they're actually achieving the savings, whether it's replacing thermostats with timers or whatever they're going through.
Sure.
Sure, they've So they've got a long list of things that they could demonstrate how they're generating the savings, but also, you know, how that compares to their actual fees would be relevant. Walsh.
I have a follow-up on that. Says Donnie, have you had any conversations with other districts who have used them?
Hampton.
Okay, and about whether the savings go down over time, because you made them up. They corrected the course on certain things, they provided their expertise. And then you don't see any additional savings over time. So you like made back what you were supposed to. It made you more efficient. They made the buildings more efficient, worked with your staff on that. But then we're not seeing like next year, you can't pull the same rabbit out of your hat to bring $1 million worth of savings. Have you talked to anybody about that? Because I just want to know going forward. Because my thought is like a company like that comes in, they got great expertise. They know exactly what they're doing and their staff, the person who's on site, who comes in here a lot that you see all the time, is doing a great job. But, you know, he's only got, you know, he's not learning a ton of new tricks, okay? So it's the same magic show every year. It's not seeing additional savings. So are we going to see that dwindle, or are you going to tell us that over the next couple of years, we're going to have another million? We're going to have another million on top of that?
Well, and if
Kinda
I
Jim's
follow the
point,
logic
yeah.
of the presentation that they prepared, like if, for example, and I'll go back to my thermostat example, if they replace these thermostats with timers, they can demonstrate that in this fiscal year, we saved $900,000 of what we otherwise would have spent. Next year, those thermostats are still in place, so we'd save another 900,000 or whatever it might be. But it does assume that, like you, to your point, we're not getting an incremental savings because we've peaked, right? We've replaced all the light bulbs.
We're also not getting additional service.
Right.
Like it's the services year one, you've given us the
That's
solution.
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, you've given us sort of the consultation. And what, you know, what next?
Right, and
I guess the only thing you may find out is the intent after 2 years, 3 years with this, we don't need them anymore?
Possibly. I mean, I know, like I said, Hamden signed back up for another 5 years with them.
that
So-
could be because
And
of the
so They
facility.
may not have saw the diminish as Mr. Walsh mentioned, but I can reach out to my colleague there and have another conversation to see. Because now I think they're in year 6 or 7 with them. If they're continuing to see a benefit or not. But again, I think they have an incentive to continue to save us money. We back away from it. Not to say we don't have good folks in our custodial maintenance department, but what is the incentive for them to save us money on energy? And they're there to do their job and go home. If the energy costs go up or down, I mean, they'd have no skin in the game.
But, and I keep going back to the same example. It's not really going around turning out lights, walking down the hall, he's saving us money. And he has to come back tomorrow to turn off the lights again, right? But if you have a timer or, if, you know,
Sure.
then you don't need that. But I do want to revisit one, we touched on one point. I do, if we didn't go out to bid for this contract, I find that alarming because it is a big dollar amount. So I'd also like to know a little bit more about that, how that contract was secured.
I could ask Angelus, I know he worked with the previous purchasing department individual on this. I couldn't give you the specifics. I'm going to assume that because there was a contract in place that said if you don't achieve what you pay us, we give you the money, the difference.
Yeah, but like I said, there are other companies that offer the service and they may have given it a better.
Just given the size of the contract and the fact that there are other people that would need to go out to bid. So that's,
Like I said,
I mean,
I know Angelus worked closely with the purchasing department prior to Adam here, so I don't know how those conversations went. And if the town attorney also was involved in the contract as well. I'm assuming he was, because we wouldn't have entered into one without the town attorney taking a look as well.
Mr. Walsh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
First, like, we'll get a memo from our purchasing department to say why we did not have to go to bid. I would like to know the purchasing department. opinion about that and whether this met all the requirements of our purchasing policy.
What? We'll follow up with Mr. Chilling. Absolutely.
This question's more for Frank. Frank, do we have purchasing contracts for electricity or gas? I don't know whether we had dual fuel things, but I know that the price of gas was going to be much lower and we're probably going to be so. So, do we have contract? Because I've asked the same for the town, we're supposed to be the answer to that. For our budget, for our town budget.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, give me your sense on that.
I'd have to ask. I know that we bought energy in bulk, so to speak. I don't know if we were locked into a rate. This was on the town side, but I'd have to look to see how that carries over to us, and I'd have to look at it. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. In regards to that page 188, seeing at the bottom under E, product, you saying that our usage is going down now? Is that why we're gonna be going down? Still say that after the winter we've had. Still are having.
It's page 188.
Well, that's one of the utility comparisons charts. I just don't know whether that's, I'm seeing the rates per CCF, but I'm not seeing usage. So I'm not sure whether there's, a usage rate in here. I'm seeing that some rate per CCF is going down for both the product, but up in distribution costs. So it's like slightly less, but I don't know what your usage is and what you're predicting, especially based on the current year we're in.
Yeah, I could say for the current year, we did see increases in our utility bills. I think gas was up maybe 30,000, January, maybe 60,000 February. But I would say that's kind of like falls along the line of snow, like we're thinking it's in snow removal, but we're not. We increase the budget because we can't control it, and I think we believe that we should manage it within that budget in the current year.
Okay. But are you saying that based on the budget from last year to the budget for for fiscal year 27, you're predicting that our energy costs are going to be going down?
So I could check, if you have questions about page 188, I could talk with the gentleman that helped us prepare the projections for the utilities to get kind of more detailed answers for you to how we land at the number.
Okay. And also it involves page 98, because that's all utility services. So that would be gas.
Gas, electric, water.
Yes. So you're basically in this budget suggesting that the costs are going to be going down. And I'd like to know whether, a couple of things. Do you still predict that usage is going to be going down based on what you're seeing? And two, based on what's going on in the world, do you still believe these prices that you're getting, or at least the rates you have, are accurate?
Yeah, so I just asked Angelus and he says that is correct. So we do lock in our rates for utility. So we'd have to see, I didn't ask admittedly.
For the whole year,
Well-
July 1st to June 30th?
Well, I remember, like I said, I have to ask, but I remember, I think one year we bought in bulk for a year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but I know one year we did buy in bulk for a year and then we factored that into the budget. So I will, like I said, I'll get back to you.
I mean, certainly, you understand, Frank, you tell me you bought for the year, it goes from July 1st to June 30th. I'm feeling really firm about these numbers, as long as your usage predictions are accurate.
Sure. Yep.
However, if these rates can fluctuate, as this is going up, I don't know what, it's gonna be going down in that. So if you think that you need to adjust that, adjustment. number,
Sure.
And an explanation of that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm done with this, Terry.
Can you update us on state reimbursed tuition? I know last year that was the big concern. You were saying that the number kept coming down and you were worried about being able to cover that. And
It's not going back up.
So, but I mean, but it's not a concern this year. So does that mean it's just kind of, that they're gonna level off at least for now or?
For now.
Okay.
And again, as long as we continue to maintain our trend of not sending more kids out, then it's not a concern for us. But as more kids, if they do continue to go out of district,
Yeah.
we would be more concerned. Because we get very little reimbursement on it. Everyone does. No one gets the reimbursement they'd like to see. It has been a problem for years and years and years. It's a drum that has been beaten to death. Nothing's gonna move on. So I did, I think that's why the state is incentivizing districts now, that if you build in-district programs on new construction, or renovations, you know, they'll incentivize you to do that because they understand that as we send kids out, prices from these out-of-district placements continue to rise astronomically. And then if they were to continue to fund that, there would be no end to it. You know, a blank check for these placements to just continue to rise costs.
If I could just,
Okay.
just follow up, I'm sorry. Cause I texted Adam and he says, you know, formal memo to file from the first selectwoman's office, but there was an RFP done first and it just.
Oh, there was. Okay, good. Great. Mr. Penley, and then I'll go to Mr. Rock next.
Just as long as we're on the state grants and revenue, we got a letter that from someone he wrote to the Board of Finance that got me curious about the EC, the Education Cost Sharing Grant.
Yes.
The ECS, yeah. So, and I read about it, it sounds like there's like a couple of pieces of legislation floating around that could increase the foundation amount.
Possibly.
And do you have any insight on that? Is it, because what I've read is that the governor has not included any increase in his budget, but wants to create something called a blue ribbon panel. I have no idea what that is. And then there's actually pieces of legislation in the Senate and the House, two different ones. And one of them would actually increase the foundation amount. And so for context, as I understand it, we spend like $29,000 per student, something like that.
Not that much now.
26, okay, but we're getting like the foundation amount from the state's like 13 or 14.
That's the foundational amount they use for ECS, correct?
Yeah,
And
that's been flat, right? For like a
13
decade,
years.
for 13 years, yeah. So why, like, what can we do to get more from the state for that? That seems ridiculous that's that low.
The advocacy around that, especially this session, has been high. I mean, the large districts really turned out in droves to advocate because they're the ones that are being shortchanged even more than we are. There is a lot of anticipation that we're probably going to see the foundational dollar amount go up, but by $1,000.
By $1,000.
That's what we're all assuming. That's where they're going to go.
Would it be where it goes up by $1,000, but then they start increasing it incrementally every year, like adjusting it up?
They were supposed to increase it every year until it was fully funded, and that was supposed to start several years ago, and it hasn't moved. So yeah, it's never gonna get there, as Mr. McFoll is shaking his head. But I would also say it increases the dollar amount, but then the formula kicks in. It won't affect us much unless it goes up significantly.
So
We don't get a lot of money.
if it passes, it would impact, it would be like retroactive to this budget, but you're saying it would be a very
Very small amount. We don't get we don't get much.
be great if we could get more.
It would be great if we can get a lot more. I think there's one bill that's thrown $58 million in the pot, so to speak. And then once the large districts get their hands on it, there won't be much left for districts like us.
Mr. Rock.
Yeah, it's the same conversation, but I'm looking at the 20-year comparison here. All of our budgets, and I'm looking at, our grand list is growing at 1.3 to 1.5, which is low. And we're racking up anywhere from 4.5% to 5% every year on increases for our education needs. And those two things are not tracking in the right direction. I mean, if our grand list is only tracking at 1.2 or something like that, we're racking up 5% every year. It becomes unsustainable. I mean, if the state doesn't come in to help relieve through ECS, I think we've got a major problem. I mean, if you look at our budget, you know, and we keep at 4.5 to 5% every year in 10 years, that's $100 million.
Well,
We're spinning out of control.
as I said, when I first got here, and I'll say it again, and I said earlier, this is the last year of the teacher's contract. We have over 1,000 certified teachers, 42% are at the top. We will start negotiations this summer. Settlements last year, and we're at 12 to 13% over 3 years in teacher settlements, teacher contract settlements. I don't anticipate that changing much. So that's going to continue to drive our budget as those are going to go up another 12, 13% over the next 3 years.
I know I'm stating the problem, giving a solution. I know it's
It's a problem that's hitting now places it historically didn't hit before. It's been a problem for, I tell you, for 15 years, ECS. And all the other funding from the state. Places like my former district and many others. Now it's hitting us and it's hitting other districts, and we're all starting to wake up to it.
Just on that, Mr. Rock, the other trend you're seeing is that, you know, our enrollment has declined a little bit, right? Our enrollment has declined over the years. So it looks like we're spending a lot more. I mean, that's a big portion of that math, right? Like as a percentage, we're spending more. Like how much of that, how much of our issue is just our weird infrastructure? And then we have all these schools. Because I'm thinking like we just had this long drawn out thing over Dwight. And I personally, I'm glad where we ended up. I think we have to deal with the infrastructure we have. But if a town has a declining enrollment and you really want to address costs, like it's got to be at these big fixed costs because we still have the same amount of facilities, even if we have less kids, right? Because that, I mean, we've just been going through this budget book. It's energy costs, it's facility maintenance. That's where our costs are, right? So, I mean,
And staff.
well, and staff, but you have to staff the schools, right?
Right.
So it's like, I mean, we just like have this sort of wonky thing with all these elementary schools all over the place. And we have to deal with that. Like we have to.
If you look at the districts that are similar to us, the Dirk Bs, you will see we're pretty much on the low end asking a little over 5%. Other districts similar to ours in Dirk B are asking upwards of 8+% increases to their budget. And they've been asking for more than we have since the pandemic. I think it's to your point. I think Mr. Myers brought up a good point. Having 2 high schools is very costly. It's very inefficient, but that's what we have, right?
I looked at Westport's budget, they went up by about 5%. And like you're showing in your presentation, that's about where you are if you get your restoration back. And one thing that I think you mentioned in your presentation to the Board of Selectmen was that the prior year, you had like $1 million of capital that the Board of Selectmen took out.
Correct.
So the increase this year, like that's just been slotted back in, but that's not your increase.
No.
So you're really up 5%, which is consistent with at least Westport. I don't know where.
And they have less schools. They have 1 high school. I mean,
A lot more administrators.
they do have a lot more.
A lot more
They
administrators.
do. And I think, you know, as the town continues to grow, I mean, with more and more apartment style housing, brings in a higher density of population. I know, you know, the conversation always is, it doesn't bring a lot of children with it, but I would venture to disagree. I think we're gonna see more kids with the.
With 2,000 more apartment units, you think we're gonna see more kids?
Yeah, a little bit.
You only need one in the Osborne case to kick it into another.
Correct.
Right, so.
Isn't the scarier part, like some of the legislation that's currently up in Hartford right now, that would reduce the density so that if Greenfield Hill could go from 3 acre zoning to only half acre zoning? That's what's really gonna change the needle around here, where we're having to build maybe 2 more elementary schools. Where you have a 3-acre parcel and now you can have 6 parcels. 5, half acres, 6, yeah, 6 parcels.
No sewers up there though. There are. I don't think they can do that.
No, and I mean, that's the scary part, looking at what's being proposed in Hartford is something like that, because that would kill us.
Hopefully we have
In
enough time to
infrastructure.
get back to that if something actually comes out of that. But
I
Mr.
think we'll
Meyer,
all be dead by now.
I'm actually, I'm changing subjects, so I don't know if this is still, you want to just finish that point or?
We're good on that point, Mr. Myers. You had to
Okay,
change.
Chromebook strategy, if you could just update us. I know last year you were kind of gave me the idea that you were moving away from, I don't know if it was maybe just certain grades, because you were worried about kids and Chromebooks. Can you tell us how that affects the budget?
Elementary students don't take the Chromebooks home every night anymore. They stay in the classrooms. We hear from parents all the time about the reduction of screen time. We tried to do our part by not sending those devices home. That obviously they're lasting longer. They're not getting transported back and forth by elementary kids and dropped and overused. So that's reflective in the budget. We still are purchasing for grade 6 and 9 because they have a greater need to use that for schoolwork. We monitor closely what they're using it, at least while they're in school, or when they connect it to the network. We're finding that students are mostly on Google Classroom.
Yeah, Mr. Elwanger.
Looking at revenue, page 147. We're budgeted for this current fiscal year to bring in 3 million. Are we on target to realize that? Ahead behind? Total revenue to the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
All grants and other sources. How are we tracking so far?
I'll have to, I could look at that and get that to you, but a lot of this doesn't go directly to the school general fund, it will go to a different grant fund. But I would say that off the top of my head, just.
So a couple of other questions. How do we set our budget for next year? Do we just assume we're going to get the same when it comes to grants? Do we know that number in advance? Are we alerted prior to finalizing the budget? Or do we just keep it flat? Most of these are just kept flat.
Well, it depends on the source and what we know. So like for the ECS, the state published run. Right. So that can kind of be. But you'll see that so like, that's actually a great example because the education cost sharing, you'll actually see that down, but you won't see that.
Right, yeah, I understand.
Excess cost does come into our tuition cost. So for those, we kind of look at current year trends. We look at, applications that we have in the pipeline. Applications that we know have been approved. Sometimes they're multi-year grants, so it really depends.
And then looking at other sources, to my mind, these are rollable, quote unquote, like grant. I'm just wondering if our costs to for special ed, why is our revenue for other districts flat?
For example,
Special ed revenue for other districts, we're keeping it flat, 134.
What page are you on?
Page 147. The actual for 2 years ago, 25, we budgeted less.
so those are students that are here through open choice. So that's revenue from other districts based on the services that.
But wouldn't don't those costs increase every year? Or do we just have fewer students?
We have the same amount of students, but not all of them require service. So that could fluctuate. So we take in a finite number of kids through open choice. Not all of them require services, and as they graduate and new kids come in, they may not need the services that the ones that left.
Building rental, I guess, does that include field rentals, outside groups?
That's rental of the 2 turf fields that are currently under our auspice, yes.
High schools?
Yeah,
Okay. And so does that include evenings, weekends?
Yes, we don't, there's not a lot of rental of the field simply because there, as we talked about when we went for the other new field, our teams, as you saw, a number of, they're usually occupied, and then we have time constraints with the lights.
So we're projecting 235 versus 260, which we've achieved the last couple of years. So we're seeing that, so they're less available.
Correct.
They're getting crowded out by.
By our
school
own team,
programs,
yes,
by your own
yes,
team.
sir. And we anticipate a little bit less, especially given that we're gonna have a field this fall under construction. So our teams are gonna have to shift over.
And the preschool tuition is going up because more preschoolers or? What is-
We're increasing our rates too.
What-
What did we figure? 6%? We went up 6%.
6% increase.
Yeah. That fluctuates based on free and reduced.
And parking fees are students, high schoolers?
Yes. And that's flat because of the number of spots that are released to the student.
No increase?
Oh, not really. It's a small one, I think. They gets them off the bus.
So they opt out.
Can't opt out of the bus. We put it in. Yes.
That means it's that.
If you didn't opt out of the bus, you didn't get your parking.
So the spaces are fully occupied, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could use more. So if we built a parking garage, if at Ludlow. for
And in the
example,
overflow lot on, well, that's the university.
Well, if you go on Sturgis in the morning, you'll see all along Sturgis, all the Ludlow kids that are parked there.
Okay.
Yeah, they really could use more spots, but unfortunately,
Can I ask you a quick question? How much did it cost the Board of Ed to remove all the snow and take it down to the Jennings Beach because you needed parking? I mean, you guys are the only ones that did that, right? The town didn't do that.
I don't know if I'll remove any snow from anywhere. It
I
probably-
think the town did.
I think they moved.
They did it on,
Moved it to Jennings.
did it on Ruane Street. They brought in.
I mean, like, how much did you guys pay?
I can get you that number with the haul.
All the hauling, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of trucks one Saturday hauling it down to Jennings.
I know for the last storm, we hadn't gotten the number yet. But I'll get it from Angela's.
I'm not seeing other hands, so I'm gonna actually chime in.
I'll,
Yeah, first, I want to take a step back. Earlier this week, the Board of Ed spent some time talking about the whole vacation schedule changes. Obviously, the budget that we're talking about tonight was prepared in advance of those discussions at the board level. So I'd like to spend a little time talking about that. I know you said earlier that you really haven't got your arms around the financial impact of potential changes. You're trying to tease through that. And Bentley touched on it, trying to figure out, is it a risk or is it a savings? I know that the decisions or discussions were not driven by budget topics. It's minutes in the day, if I understand it correctly, but obviously the timing of your discussions and decisions are coinciding with our budget discussions. So I think it's incumbent upon us to just try and better understand how that might impact the budget. Does it turn this $800,000 request for reinstatement to $1 million, $500,000? There's got to be some impact. And if you have to do more work on it, maybe by the end of the month, if you have time, that will give us a chance to take that into consideration. But big picture, I wanted to just try and maybe we're talking units here instead of dollars, but if I understand correctly, STEAM, you're gonna eliminate STEAM or roll it into the math and science curriculum. You've got 11 head count that were dedicated STEAM.
STEAM and gifted.
STEAM and gifted. Now, gifted doesn't go away, right? So, and I think if I recall correctly, you said that nobody's losing their job. Some of these people may do different things, but I imagine that if they're doing different things, those positions that they then take are, I assume, vacant positions now? Or like, and if so, was the vacant position budgeted and now their position was also budgeted? So is there a savings there because you're not having to hire someone? Maybe it's at a higher cost, you know, so it's not a total savings. But that's the kind of thought process that I've been struggling with over the last couple of days. I love your insight.
Well, number one, if they're going into a position where somebody retired, that could, as Frank mentioned earlier, the assumption on the attrition savings would go away. That number would go away. And then I think it was also touched upon that some of these folks may need to be retained to do something else, that, or used differently, but not necessarily going into a vacant position. We've had some conversations around that as well, where we could really use the support in a couple of our schools. Just eliminating the positions altogether would be a hardship. So, and had those conversations actually with. So, will there be possibly a potential of some savings? Yes. How much exactly?
Henley's point, there may be other coordination.
Correct.
So there could be an extra layer of expense.
There could be some additions as well, because we're increasing the number of arts at the primary grades, which could just shift the position into somewhere else. So that's why when we said from the beginning, the onset, this isn't about budget, because to give folks a false understanding that this could save us potentially $500,000 and then later on it saves us $10. You know, then people would be saying, well, why didn't you get the savings? Like, as you said.
And as you sit here tonight, you haven't, you're asking for a reinstatement of exactly where you were. So effectively, you're assuming that these schedule changes will be financially neutral, because otherwise you'd have to for more.
That's the assumption we're gonna make.
The assumption is that.
Correct. And if there is a potential for savings, then we would come back and be forthcoming with this.
Yeah, Mr. Vitale.
Just to follow up on what the superintendent just said about potentially new positions that aren't in this book, just what would those look like? Like, what type of positions did you hear from the administrators? That they are seeing that they need that?
I think it's
For,
kind of too early to discuss how those, what we would be able to support, because it is a burden to some folks. I mean, we've tried to, again, starting at the beginning of the presentation, we've tried to be responsible to the, you know, there was once a double accelerated math academy here in the district. We've reimagined it, so to speak, in a way that hasn't cost the district any additional money, but we've used existing resources, which has taken away from services to students that has hindered some buildings.
Can I?
Whilst you're next.
I really just wanted to parse out what you said, but I just in me watching that presentation, like if STEAM is going away, if it's gonna go back and it's gonna be taught, part of it's gonna be taught in the classroom. Like, these are classroom features, they got a bunch of stuff going around. The STEAM class, it's like, you know, it's like, I'm gonna make this a volcano. I didn't have the wherewithal to do that in a class. Like, so I think most parents watching that assume there's gonna be some like coordinator for science. Like it would be surprised if they don't do that, but I'm not an educator, as you guys well know.
You're kind of your thinking is pretty accurate.
Well, I think like an educator.
That's what I mean. Again, that's why we stressed from the beginning that this wasn't about budget. This was really about regaining minutes and what's best for students in their educational experience in the classroom. And we also, if we're going to do this, we need to be prepared for some of the things that we may not be thinking of. To your point, and how we're going to support classroom teachers in this process.
Can I just ask, because I did want to clarify something you said, just to make sure that I understand it. The attrition line. You're budgeting, okay, let's assume you have a person earning $150,000, and then you're budgeting somebody coming in earning $100,000, just to use easy numbers. Sure. That's $50,000 of, like, call it revenue to you.
Right.
Okay. So if the person replacing them is earning $130,000, your revenue's gone down a little bit.
Correct.
Right, okay, but so I'm not, like, I guess what I'm not getting clear is that, it seems like that number in there is definitely going to shrink.
I would say yes.
Yeah, and potentially there may be additional FTEs
Or
or purposing them, yeah.
or less, right, or repurposing of current FT, right, not more, but the same.
So if you're, the restoration you're asking for though, it doesn't assume that attrition line shrinks, right? It assumes that
It
it
does not.
right? So it's, okay.
And that question for the superintendent really was just kind of curious of what he's hearing from the schools. And I didn't get to watch the Board of Ed meeting on Tuesday night, just due to our meeting
Yeah, we were
and
here.
and had
You
an
were here.
events yesterday. So it was really just wanted to get feedback of what we foresee, a new need that maybe is not,
Yeah, I don't think it's a new need. I just think that we need to be prepared to make sure that we provide the proper level of support during a change. So-
Case in point, when we eliminated the Math Academy, we had the teacher for a year provide additional support as it was being worked into all 11 elementary schools. So that was something that was for a 1-year thing. Now we have an entire STEAM coming into our schools. Now, again, the board's not discussed this. So I'm not speaking of a definitive position, but maybe if a decision were made that one of those STEAM teachers needed to provide that level of support. Now, again, these are not science specialists who are taking this position. These are general ed classroom teachers, which is why worst case scenario, they could simply be absorbed as a general ed classroom teacher. But it might make sense for one of them to be providing help with the professional development that is going to be needed to get that work incorporated into the classroom. That's one possible example.
Again, we never said the elementary schedule would amount to savings.
No, we understand that. But I think the public perception may be different. Like they feel like this is being cut, it's budget season and that's what's driving it. And I just want to make sure for the public's benefit that that's not, we've heard it directly from you. You've been very clear. That's not what's driving it.
Everyone's listening. I don't know if they listen as intensely as they do to the Board of Ed. It was said there several times. We'll say it for the fifth time tonight. This is not budget driven whatsoever. And I do think, again, going back to, we've been very effective in maximizing our resources, but we've gotten significantly more kids in the double accelerated math at the elementary school to have that opportunity without adding any staffing. But there is some other needs that we could possibly explore.
just one, for the attrition line, just refresh my memory. It's for the retirees, but is there any other assumptions just for people leaving at the end of the year? Like you have people, or is it just really kind of figuring the retirees for that?
It's just really for
The retirees. So in terms of if you need to fill other positions, if there's any, if this moves forward in terms of available positions, there could be available positions just from people leaving the district for other reasons besides retirement.
Correct. So people will resign. Most people who resign are at the beginning of the pay scale. So the people coming in are either somewhat the same or possibly higher.
It was not,
We do a really
not
good,
talking about just budget, just in terms of process.
we work really hard in making sure that our teacher interns are the first ones we hire. We've hired all of them in the last couple of years. So to bring them in at the first step. We have a bunch of them that have been asking, and we try to lock them up as early as possible, but budget passing, knowing where we'll be, very helpful.
We're good with that topic. Mr. Walsh, did you?
I'd like to talk about this topic. I've been waiting.
Okay.
So I don't see that there's any confusion, but there seems to be confusion about this subject. So
Which one?
I'm gonna ask Ms. Kennelly and I'm gonna ask you. Has there been talk at the board table? Do you have any numbers that you guys are floating around on what savings? Or are you just talking about this as a process, about what you might?
You're talking about for the elementary school schedule.
Yeah, the elementary.
We have been solely discussing this as what is in the educational best interests of students.
Exactly. That's what I thought. I thought we were so far away from money. I mean, the first select woman, I took, talked about it and might have been part of the confusion in regards to her cut, that there might be additional savings there. But we have no idea whether there is, whether it could be $1 million or as you said, Ms. Donnie.
The intent is not for this to be budget driven, correct?
Okay, so it doesn't seem like we should really be talking about this because is there any possibility you're gonna have numbers to us in the next couple of weeks when we have to vote? If there's not, then we should just move on from this and not talk about it, right?
I completely agree with you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you very much.
Okay, okay.
I will say just one part of that has created that conflict is that this is a leftover from the spring. You know, in having our budget discussions, obviously all of you at the Board of Finance Forum heard from plenty of parents who were concerned about saving some of these specials, and that was a budget-driven discussion. So for us to bring it up has certainly in the eyes of the public made that kind of an automatic connection, even no matter how many times Mr. Tassani and myself said, this is not what's driving this. We have an issue within our schools. We have a time issue. We have an unrealistic schedule that we're asking of our teachers. We need to address it. And that's so, but the connection was there long before, you know, we even brought the topic up. So it's been trying to address that.
And I think you've been very clear about it. And I think Mr. Testani, you've been even clearer about it. And so I think, I don't understand why they're still.
So Fairfield has a.
Yeah, it's going nuts on, the reason there's confusion of whether it was budget driven is because it's social media is going crazy.
Yeah, they're going
But for our budget, I think it's super relevant because just, I mean, not to just, I keep feeling I keep repeating myself, but basically you have a bunch of people who will be looking for a seat and they're gonna have jobs.
Mhm.
And we know that we're gonna have retirements. Ostensibly, those people are gonna get those jobs. So the attrition assumption is shrinking, period. So that's gonna bring the budget up. It's gonna be negative for the budget. So what the scheduling thing, it's, you know, it does have an impact on our budget discussions. It should have an impact on budget discussions.
We don't have no numbers for our discussion on that.
No.
On this entire subject matter, we will have no definitive numbers.
We might in a couple.
Like, unless you know, maybe you are an education expert. And you can choose and find out. Come to me and say, Jim, I think there's another $2 million of savings here. We're gonna cut from the, I'd like.
No,
you might be able to talk.
I just think we can assume that there's less, the attrition number is smaller, that we can safely assume that the attrition number will be smaller. And so they'll actually have a bigger budget hole to fill.
I mean, but this conversation is kind of like me guessing like what's gonna happen with energy costs by the end of the year. I have no information on it, but I'm just gonna say, I think there's $1 million of savings coming up on the energy side.
Yeah, we can't.
Nor should we consider.
You responsibly can't budget that way.
But we're doing that with cameras. I mean,
But for the attrition number, we already have these salaries in this budget.
Mhm.
So I would think that it would firm up your attrition number more, because right now you're making assumptions on the attrition number based on who's going to fill the position. Right now, you're saying 20 people are going to be retiring and you're making program changes, not for the budget, but because of there needs to be a schedule change at the elementary school level. And the intent is to take the salary that's already in this budget and fill those positions that for the
That's
20 people that are
assuming-
retiring. So I think that
But that makes an assumption that those people, the 7 individuals, are automatically going into those retirement jobs and not being used possibly to do some other level of support because of the reduction that was made and the gap that needs to be filled. I think it's premature, because if we said from the beginning, we're gonna cut something to save money, that's one thing. We're trying to gain minutes in the schedule with the thought that there possibly could be some gaps that we have that need to be filled by the individuals that could be impacted.
Mr. Walsh.
Ms. Nelly and Mr. Testani, if you know the numbers, you would present them.
Correct, yes.
And if it's after us, it's with the RTM for a month, you would give them to them and they could cut the budget based on that.
Correct.
They couldn't increase it.
And that's the point, right? If there's any knowledge that we can gather in the next 2 weeks that would warrant an increase to justify the restoration, the more information we have, the better. But once it gets past us at the end of the month, it's either flat or it's going down from there at the RTM.
You would never maintain anyone that just do nothing. So
What do you think the chances of us getting new information from you on this subject matter?
we'll
in the
we'll
next
do
few
our,
weeks?
we'll do our very best. We'll do our very best. But, we didn't intend to make a final decision in the next 2 weeks.
But even if it's directional.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Rock.
I want to take us off of this, so if there's anything else before we.
Okay.
I want to get back to, restoration right now is at 850,000. Okay, that's what we're looking for. We had some great news today that the health benefits, we got a good guy there of 491. Weren't expecting that. That's great. And this is a very obvious question. I'm just going to ask it anyway. I think I know what the answer is. If we didn't get that information today about the health benefits, ending at 12.5 instead of 14. Let's say we just didn't have that for this presentation. Would you be coming in asking for 1.65 in restoration?
Yeah.
You would.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And I guess the follow-up to that is, if you're uncomfortable with cost cut, right? You said half. Okay, would we be more comfortable? Because you thought that risk was, cut it in half and then it's not a risk. How is that not a part of restoration?
Because it would be cut at the Board of Ed level, not at the Board of Select.
So, all right, okay, all right, so,
Yes.
so we can't do that.
No, we can.
No.
We can.
Okay.
We absolutely can, but. And I don't want to speak for you, but my read on this is the superintendent is respecting the decisions of the Board of Ed.
Yes.
He's respectfully asking for restoration on the changes at the Board of Select.
Okay, I just want to make sure how the puzzle works.
We could talk and identify like, this is a real risk. Right. And decide to put 844 plus 300. Or we could say, no, we think, we'll give you 300 for the transportation risk, and you guys got to figure out the other 5,
Just didn't know how the channels worked. You got here.
Well, if we, again, we would have taken the risk if there was no further cut. So at the Board of Ed level, we're assuming, and the board's assuming that this budget will just pass through. That's what we have to assume, that the budget wouldn't be cut any further, but it was. So that's why this restoration is important, that we can assume the risk comfortably. But without this, then we may see you next year.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment on this. So you made the budget, you made the cut, you anticipated your budget would sail through. The first select person was the head of the Board of Ed for a very long time. I don't think you would have anticipated she would have cut it. She obviously cut it because she must have felt like she would be able to get there. So that to me is very telling,
I don't know.
because
what the
you
thought-
never looked for a cut when you were in that role. So something must have gone through that you felt pretty comfortable cutting this by that number.
It was, as I reported at the Board of Selectmen, I was looking at the fact that they were running
I watched the meeting.
a surplus and realizing that, kind of suspected and been advocating just for the state insurance, a 2.0 plan to seeing a reduction in rate. Because we've seen that in past years. And for knowing that the Board of Ed was discussing the change in the schedule.
But we've already established that's
It's
relevant.
But it is though, in my opinion, that it is relevant, that while the Board of Ed is doing it for educational purposes, that they saw a need to have the discussion. And it seemed like it was moving forward for the next fiscal year. In conversations, I still think that if you're reducing time you're reducing time and you're not adding positions. It just seems like doing the math that there would be some savings there.
Based on your expertise.
Well, at least
And no, I mean, believe me, I mean that in the highest regard. You, I think you do your job and you were very effective.
past budget discussions in
I'm gonna
terms
trust
of
you.
needing to try to get educational minutes and reducing, time in other areas. It produced a savings. Now, this conversation that we're having today, I think it's sounding like do it just straight, we're changing the schedule, there's going to be a decrease in minutes, and you're doing nothing else, then I think that there would be a savings, in my opinion. If you're adding, if you identified another need, or adding positions that aren't reflected in this budget, then that savings would be reduced. Which is why I asked the question of just wanting to know from an educational standpoint, that you're changing the schedule, totally understand that there might be newly identified needs if this is going to move forward. Just want to know what those needs were and what the anticipated cost of those needs would be. And I think that you could get a rough estimate of that, that's my opinion, sooner rather than later. And hearing from both the board of select persons and comments by this board concerned about the revaluation, tax increase to residents, and realizing where people seemingly, I think we were talking about a $7 million reduction from Mr. Walsh at the very beginning of what he was looking for to pass the budget, was cognizant of that when putting forth the town budget. And with the Board of Ed being, over 60% of the town budget, there was only so many places to look. So wanted to, try to find savings where I could in balancing the needs for the district, while also being cognizant of what the district was facing and what was coming down the line. Had conversations with board leadership and the superintendent before, early on, that if there was any anticipation that there was going to be no reduction to the Board of Education budget, that I don't know why that would be, because I was pretty transparent and that I was looking to make a reduction to some of the initial numbers that I was given, just knowing where the reval were coming in at, the numbers we were seeing from town departments and the reductions we were making at town departments. We didn't share what the asks were for across the town. They were coming in, 8% too, and just trying to balance the needs. This is not being done for budgetary purposes, but there might be a budgetary impact. So it was just looking at that one. And if it's the other way, then knew that they would have this conversation at this board, that you had the opportunity to restore funding based on new information, which it seems like we're getting based on conversations that Mr. Sistani had with administrators this morning.
But based on everything you've said,
Last night.
and the fact that you were in that role for 6 years and very effective in it through the roughest periods of town and history, basically through COVID, and you recommended a $2 million cut, I have gotten some relief to that already, just by getting possibly Chromebooks moved out, the almost $500,000 with the health benefit, and the pensions another $500,000. That squeeze that you gave them has already been cut over half. So it would take a whole lot of information, in my opinion, for this board, I'm sorry to say, to restore that in the position we're in today. Because you have the most experience in that world, more than I think anyone at this table. So that's all I'm saying. Like I said, it was a comment in the sense that I think that we've gotten lucky that some of these numbers have come in lower than anticipated, to be honest with you.
Just wanna, with all due respect, you're right, it's 1.155764. I also want to remind you that the Board of Ed themselves cut 980, so when you add the two up, it's over $2 million. That doesn't, and I won't even go into the 3.2 that I cut, so.
But if there was a real hole, the board has you can transfer the money. If we're having a surplus on the side, we could always transfer the money back, correct, during the year.
In what
You're
sense?
talking about the non-lapsing stuff?
Yeah, like, I mean, if you had to cover something.
Board of Ed surplus from this current year? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking
Saying
about,
they're
if we're
short.
going through next year,
Oh, if they have
They're
a
short.
they have to come back to us.
Yes, exactly.
We've never done that.
Yeah,
We've never had to
I
do
was
it.
gonna
though.
say,
We haven't had to do it.
never done that.
We haven't had
And,
to.
and I wouldn't even want them to even think that that was even a possibility.
And the
What,
point is you
we
haven't
have
had.
done, and Ms. Vitaleano knows this, when that has happened and we've identified, and they've come before us after two quarters and said, we look like we are in the red by this much money. This body has said to them, that's your problem. That's not our
I'm
problem.
part of the meetings, I know that, Jim.
How you gonna make that work? Cut whatever you gotta
I'm
cut.
aware. You're bringing up, I'm saying a point here. We never have had to do it.
Okay, I just want to be
So
clear.
I'm feeling comfortable with the number. That's
I think Amy is saying that based on history,
What am I not sitting
we're
here?
not likely to run into this problem. I hope you're saying that, because I agree with you. I don't want to be drawing money out of the general fund
No,
to.
of course not, but we haven't had to do it. They've
But-
always come through in delivering the result they've committed.
Can I just say one thing, though? I agree. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Christine. She knows that, and she knows that, and she
You
is,
wouldn't have cut it. There's no way you would have cut it.
But-
if you weren't comfortable
with
doing
all
it.
due respect,
Comfortable.
Jen Max and Kennelly.
I know, but
It really hurts me.
position where it must have
Not, and it's
No
no
doubt.
we all not just
Guys,
advocate for.
Jen Maxon Kennelly is the chair of the Board of Education. She's a very experienced teacher and chair of the Board of Ed, and she didn't cut $2 million. She asked for more money. So we need to give.
And she was on the board
Equal
longer
weight.
than I was, so.
I have nothing but respect for everybody.
I just like to put.
Hold on. We're
I'm not
losing
saying
the
that.
oversight conversation. Mr. March, you have the floor.
I mean, 844,000 right now is what you came in and asked for.
Yes.
It's 0.3% of the budget, 0.3%. This is a very small number. I was so happy when I saw this number. I was like, this is gonna be over in an hour. It's never.
Never over.
No, but just also keep it in the context of, when Frank comes in with, quarter, second quarter, but, surplus, it can vary from 300,000, 800,000. We're not talking like $5 million problem here.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, this is like, let's not worry about it. And I know you don't like the idea of saying, well, just come back to me. I'm not a big fan of giving it just because you put it on a piece of paper and you need it. I'm more of a fan of, hey, look, if you really go over this by 800, we'll see. Then we'll talk about it. I don't hand my kid $10 when he only needs to spend 5. I say spend 5 and come back to me if you need the other. You know what I mean? Like, you hand him a credit card or you hand him cash? No, so I don't know. I think this isn't a big number. This is not.
Mr.
I was-
Matola.
It's not a big number, and I think by the time the RTM gets this, it's gonna be May, or late April, May. We'll know more about a possible Board of Ed surplus. So that's gonna be factored into it too.
Right. So, Mr. Walsh.
So, Ms. Vitale, I just want to talk to you.
Sure.
Stuff that you said here tonight, and I've heard you say it at a couple of other meetings. You've said it the first night of the presentation, and you've talked about it at the table as well. I've watched the meetings. And that's this idea that, I guess, and I would like to get, Mr. Testani and Ms. Kennelly's opinion. But that you think that just because after 2 quarters, there was a surplus, that you think that there's going to be a surplus at the end of the year, and that they could potentially use that to purchase stuff. Because I want to know then your opinion, because I kind of like that idea in a way. I kind of like that idea, because I'd like to do that on the town side then. I would like you to pre-purchase, take our surplus from the end of second quarter. And we're going to presume we're going to purchase that stuff for next year, trucks, all sorts of other things. With that surplus at the end of the second quarter, how would you feel, how would you as the head of this town, the CEO, feel about that logic? Because I don't think it really works, actually. That logic to me is horrible logic, because we have seen on this board where we've had a large surplus after 2 quarters. And we have seen that surplus dwindle. We have seen it the other way. We've seen a low number after 2 months and seen it go raise by $5 million by the end of the year.
Usually goes up.
And 2 quarters, especially this year, when they don't even have all your, I'm sure your figures in for snow removal, all the energy costs, all that stuff. It's a dangerous place to be to just say we're gonna Let's not talk about what we're gonna be doing. Because if I said that to you as the CEO of the town, we're gonna take the second quarter number. And we're just gonna start, why don't you start pre-purchasing some of the stuff from this year's budget so that I can make a $4 million cut out of your number?
I think,
You feel okay about that?
first of all, if there was a surplus, there was opportunities for things in this budget, like textbooks. That there are multiple, the Board of Education tries to not have all the textbooks in the same year. For various circumstances, this is a big textbook year. Textbooks are one of those things that you can wait. I'm not saying do it now. I'm saying this was just thinking for ways that I saw potential relief based on the way things play out, and the Board of Ed has seen some level of surplus at the end of the fiscal year. And if they have, just based on past history, if you take a look back, that there's been, and it's no fault, transportation comes in, the utilities come in, you're making assumptions for special education, and then it's there at the end. So saw that as a potential cushion that they could use to either pre-purchase some of these books that ended up in this budget, or put it in a non-lapsing account, or to handle a potential budget deficit, or to handle volatility in special education for the next fiscal year.
Isn't that the
We
way-
can have a discussion about whether or not, if we have a surplus, if you just want us to pre-purchase capital, we can have that discussion. And if you want to restore this money to the Board of Education, go ahead, have at it. I mean, have at it was just really, as the first select person, wanted to be responsive to the feedback that I've heard from this board, other boards, the public, and was just trying to balance the various needs of our town. But
It raises an interesting idea about whether we should use the surplus that we know that we're gonna have this year, in May, before we vote on the mill rate.
and I think that
Because, then we could just say, and we're short. We'll just dip into fund balance, I guess.
but I,
Let's have that conversation.
I know, but it's just,
But
I understand. It's odd logic, because I understand, Ms. Vitale, when you've been on the chair for many years of the Board of Education, I have seen you make other side of the argument of what you're making right now. And I've seen what the Board of Ed tries to do, and it's kind of similar things you do. They just do it. They just say, we have textbooks, we're going to pre-purchase them now. There was a year they bought all of these Chromebooks. They had a large surplus. They pre-purchased Chromebooks that were in the next year's budget. And they not getting our permission to do that. They just do it because it's in their budget and they can do it.
I told them before you got here that they really shouldn't do something.
I would never do.
I was gonna say,
They said
goes back to what John.
they're gonna be very cognizant knowing
Yeah.
what's going on in town. But I hear what you're saying.
But isn't that what we're doing with this 177,000 of Chromebooks that you're, that is what you're doing, right? You can afford to absorb some of this challenge from the Board of Selectmen to the tune of $177,000 by not spending it next year and by spending it this year because you have a surplus. That's exactly what we're talking
We're
about.
moving money around.
In timing.
Well,
I think that's a good idea.
we're finding some money because it gives us about $100,000 in savings
Because of the time, the price goes up. Yeah.
on the same product. It would be, we could have just sat back and said, well, it's in the budget. Somebody's paying for it.
No, but regardless of the unit price, and I appreciate the fact that it's a good decision to buy it at a lower price now than to wait a few months and buy it at a higher price. That makes total sense. But we are talking about what was originally expected, included in the budget to spend next year, accelerating that purchase and using this year's dollars so that you don't have to spend it. That's the same thing that we're talking about, whether it's
I think
Chromebooks.
we should get a little credit in being forthcoming about it as well, too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I guess my question is, if there's not just Chromebooks, if there are textbooks or other things, you do the same thing, right?
We will.
Okay.
and I think with textbooks being that and correct me if I'm wrong, that there's textbooks in this budget that should have been purchased in past years.
Yeah.
So if you pre-purchase, you're not necessarily creating that hole in the budget. And fully admit that, we did create a hole in terms of bonding the capital last year, and now it's in this budget this year. But also comparing the Board of Ed to the town, for some of it, it's a different beast a little bit in terms of, what's volatile as you're heading towards year end. The Board of Ed kind of has an idea of certain volatility. I'm just gonna leave it there. What's volatile on the town side and special ed on the Board of Ed side, and both of them have utilities and snow removal. There's similarities, but there's some items that they're not dealing with, the town is.
But just to close out on this point, we started talking about this non-lapsing account carrying over this year's dollars into next year. To me, it works the same way, whether you don't spend it now and you're allowed to spend it later, or you spend it now so you don't have to spend it later. It's the same dollar.
I
So
think it's good to have that conversation around textbooks. I think this conversation began around personnel. And that's a different conversation because that's not a one-time purchase. Because if it gets cut, if it impacts this budget, then we'll be in the same position next year trying to say, well, you cut us last year, the people are still here, you have to fund it this year.
Yeah.
That's the only.
yeah, there's a difference between that and timing.
Correct.
And I'll just say on the transportation side, that this year we are projecting, a deficit in that area, right? But we can cover it with potentially transfers from other areas, but so we know that our budget for this year is a little light there, right? And our budget to budget increase is only 11% compared to 18.5% contract.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think what Mr. Testani said, when the board voted on it, it was at this time. And I think that I'm bearing that in mind and saying that is an area of overall concern.
Just to summarize, in my notes, I think I heard you say that you felt like there were a few line items where you had risks. One was on the transportation side. I think that was about 300K. You mentioned the utilities might be, right? And I think special
Special ed is always
the risk.
But
Always.
as we've done a really good job for the last several years, and I think that, we meet every day.
Yeah.
Conversation we're having, trust me.
Yeah.
So that we not have to come back here.
Are there other big categories, whether it's transportation, energy, or special ed? Are there other big categories where you feel like there are risks or that
I
those?
think that's
No removal.
snow, if we have another bad winter.
All right. Shane, can you do something about the weather for next year?
Well, we could always take Jasper McLeavy's, philosophy. That's how you put it there, take it away. So
Yeah, exactly. All right, Mr. Walsh.
In regards to the special ed risk, how do you guys budget for what you think increases of these students that need to go out of district are? Do you make calls around to them, or when do they set like what their increases are gonna be? Like, how do you know what to increase that by? Even if you're basing it on students you've already identified, and then you have to guesstimate new kids coming in and other kids who may need services that didn't need them last year. How do you guesstimate, or at least put a number on what the increase of those, because they seem to go up higher than our increases.
Well, we have the kids that are currently outplaced. We are notified, and now legally, we're supposed to be notified by the out-of-district parents of their tuition increases.
For next year.
For next year.
Great.
So we have a list of all that.
Okay, great.
And then we also know where we're at with certain kids and families and the potential for the likelihood of any kids going out of district possibly next year, but also any of the kids that are potentially coming back. So Mr. Mancusi said to say hello.
Okay.
But him and I
Never hear anymore.
him and I and his staff work really closely. Every week we have a full meeting every Thursday. And these are the things we talk about, where kids are, who's possibly coming back, who's possibly going out. you know, where settlements may run. That is a standing meeting every Thursday from 12 to about 3. And well, that's why we see the numbers coming down. There's a lot of effort put into this.
Yes, and that's great. And the reason the numbers are going down, which you presented on the chart, which I wasn't here for the presentation, you think that's all in regards to Mr. Mancuso's program and bringing more kids in-house?
It's the entire team working hard and building good programs. I think, you know, we talked about it, maintaining consistency of staff in our programs. So I think a lot of it goes into this and being proactive and working with families.
That investment in the in-house programs, when you consider that the identification rate is rising. It's rising statewide, it's rising in the town. So we are having more students identified, but building these programs is having it is paying off for us.
That's great. We all invested a lot of money in it, and we believe in this Contingency plan, and it seems to be paying off.
Yes.
So, let me ask you this. Part of your presentation was on critical investment, and there's this thing out, academic excellence, and I think I've asked before, and I've asked other your predecessors in years before you.
Okay.
So we're spending budgets for like $246 million.
Yes.
In regards to academic excellence, how are the test results showing our investments doing in the investments? Are test scores improving, or are they not improving? Are they staying the same or down? As a district, I'm not asking for anything in regards to a specific school, but any.
So you-
give us all a sense, because we don't have a lot of chances to talk to you about that.
Yes.
So I'd just like to
So
see
our
what bang for the buck we're getting.
big investment we made a couple of years ago, we talked about earlier in our literacy program in elementary school is paying off dividends. Don't get ahead of ourselves in predicting, but we see another huge growth increase across our elementary school. We anticipate in the upcoming standardized tests for at the state level. So our investments are showing a return on them. We had 7 schools with 17 distinctions. That's a record here in Fairfield. So I do see that the investments we're making are paying off, correct?
Have we gotten our test scores? Have they all gotten to the point where they were pre-COVID? Have we made back all of the loss, do you think? When you look at everything?
I would say we're getting there, and I think in literacy, we're going to see in our elementary schools that we've exceeded. That's our prediction.
Okay. So we're not quite there yet.
Well, we won't know until spring testing.
All right. Could you tell us one time you're looking for us, once you know that?
Would love to.
Okay. that'd be
Happy to talk about our,
And I just want to compliment you on your budget. And I was looking for fluff that I thought there wasn't a lot of fluff.
nothing left.
So I would say it's one of the more responsible budgets I've seen, because I was hoping there'd be a lot of fluff. And it wasn't. I don't know.
Thank you.
Compliment you on that.
I just want to follow up on something that Jim said. So, you know, I again, back to that presentation you did earlier this week. So the scheduling presentation, it included some data on it. And, you know, I'll say it again, it wasn't great. And what it showed was like in language arts that about low 70% are hitting the state standards, which I think are kind of like minimal standards. In math, it's even worse. And you can see, yeah, from COVID, things dropped, and it's getting a little bit better, but it is concerning. And that's not a indictment of the schools. I know the schools do well, and I know that is district-wide, and there's some schools that are doing better. I think it's important to point out because, you know, I, by the way, agree that we're looking at a very, very marginal amount of the budget here. So I think we're in a good place, but, you know, I just want to keep the momentum towards the idea that we need to keep spending on education. And we spend less per dollar than most districts. And there's sometimes a you know, misconception about how well we're doing. And to me, low 70s, 60s is not acceptable. And certainly when we moved here, we had a different thing in mind. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I hope that we all just keep that in mind. And earlier, before you were here, Mr. Testani said that, and it wasn't necessarily a budgetary issue, that it was, there were other things, curriculum. But I think we should always keep that in mind because this is an important investment for the town and we, you know, you cannot necessarily just sort of cut to better results always. It's an investment.
Mr. Stani, you think this switching and increasing the core areas, the time spent at the elementary level will assist in those scores?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I did have one follow-up question on the grants. Are the grants assumed in this budget comprehensive? And like, I imagine that some of the grant numbers may be undetermined or yet to be determined, so there may be some risk in the number, but generally it's a finite list. But did I hear correctly that there's a new grant of about 300,000 that may not have been taken into consideration in the budget?
Drip,
I'm not,
that possibly could be, but that's for this current year.
okay.
And there's some guidelines around what you can spend that on in terms of capital.
So that wouldn't affect.
That wouldn't affect next year's budget.
And if it was for this year and for capital, then it's a one-time occurrence.
Correct.
Great.
Are you looking at it for this year?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're on top of it. We're just gotta identify, it's all in the works. We're
Right, I'm just-
within the team and our new security and operations assistant is working on it.
I don't know. Yep.
Just want to thank the superintendent and the Board of Education. This is not a town versus education conversation at all. We've been in communication from the start on this. And while I did make a reduction, it was not, by no means easy. I knew that it was very much a starting point. And if there's new things that have budget drivers, appreciate you bringing them forward. And my questions tonight were really just to know newly identified needs for the district. So thank you. And for this board, if you don't want to see any cut from the first select person's office, you know, moving forward, that would just make my job a little bit easier in terms of building next year's budget.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I ask Mary a question?
Sure.
You were budget director down at Fairfield, right?
Yes.
When you put the budget book together, did you have org charts?
Yes, we had a work chart.
Did you leave that information behind when you left?
Yeah, yes, yeah, I did do it. I used Adobe InDesign, which, was, you have to know how to use, it's a different, but yes, yeah.
And with respect to the org charts that was requested in tonight's online backup, it's the comprehensive.
I didn't have a chance to take a look at it, but we have every department. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Well, thank you very much.
Very much.
Appreciate all your efforts and thank your board members as well and your staff and Frank.
I wouldn't want to drag it out longer, but there's also the non-public transportation. Do you guys just want to email me questions about that? Because it was on the agenda. If people have questions, then I can just say instead of us coming.
Yeah, I think you.
That's a set number.
That's next.
We will ask questions if we have them, but I covered everything. All right. Let me close up this. This.
Those 240.
Might be the same. I don't have it with me. Okay. So with that, that closes out our discussion on the Board of Education. Next up, we had 3 open items from our previous meeting with respect to the finance department on the revenue side. And presenting that information will be our CFO, Tom Harris, our Director of Financial Planning, Ben Bro, and our Controller, Tony DeFelice. So, Tom, do you want to take us through the revenue for, oh, and I should add, this is for Department 3010, which in the budget book is page 83. But let's go ahead.
All right, are we looking at health and welfare services and private school bus transport?
We're just working on that. We were gonna, if we have any open questions, we could just respond to all our questions. Yeah. So With that, Tom, you've got the floor.
Yeah, I'm gonna be speaking from page 83 in the budget book.
83?
83 in the budget, yes. The finance revenues really have three main streams. One is state aid and grants. The second is rental income, and the third is investment income. In terms of the state aids and grants, these come in periodically throughout the year, some monthly, some quarterly, and some are as infrequently as annual. So you can't really look at year to date and determine whether we're on budget or not, but based on the agreements and what we've received so far in terms of the state aid and grants and rental income, we would expect to be on budget. In terms of the state aid and grants, those are object items 40040 through 41196. These revenues really come right off of a revenue chart that comes from the governor's office, OPM. So these really are pretty much fixed numbers. Although the phone access line number has changed recently, we got an updated schedule, and that's increased by about $1,800. In terms of the contribution to revenue, the total revenue for the year increases to 19.4, up from 18.7, which is about 3.8% increase. And the state aid accounts for roughly 70% of the increase year, and about 47% of the total revenue amount. In terms of the rental income, these are again income that comes from the rental of town properties and space for communication towers. A couple of items I'll point out there. There's a decrease of $14,399, and that is due to the fact that the cottage at the golf course is not being rented. And there is a.
Is that just like currently not being rented or it's not?
Well,
gonna be rented?
the superintendent who is deceased live there.
But I mean, we don't.
It's
have
not being
plans
rented. No, it's not. It's
to
not.
ever use that again as a rental.
I don't know if it can be. It is not being used now. I don't know if
Find
there's a
out.
plan to use it in the future.
Have there been discussions about using it for other purposes, or I know it was in somewhat disrepair?
It's been in disrepair, so we haven't
Yeah.
talked about rent. I don't think there's a desire to rent it again as a rental to an outside.
So could it be a possible sale? So to sell the property, or would you want to keep, I mean, maybe these are conversations for.
Yeah, I
We can
haven't,
talk with
we
Anthony.
haven't talked to Anthony,
Yeah.
yeah, and Anthony hasn't brought it up as something to get rid of, and we usually.
I know he did say last year it needed a lot of work,
Yeah.
somebody to move in. So,
Yeah.
It's on the golf property.
yeah, it's on the golf
I mean,
course.
so we're
Yeah.
just kind of like.
No,
selling
Yeah,
it.
only a
it's not.
certain type of person wants it.
It's across the street from the maintenance shed, so it's literally, they have a next door neighbor that's privately owned, and then next to that is the driveway to the driving range. So it
On
absolutely.
the other side of the street?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was on the property.
Yeah, it is an old farmhouse. You know, it's in disrepair, so it'd be interesting to see what could be done with that.
Okay. There's an increase of $72,900. That's Child's Garden, and that's the impact of, there was a new lease that was in effect part of fiscal 26. It will be in effect for the full year. So that's just the timing here. The other area that I would discuss is investment income. And the current budget assumes that we will continue to book income based on the value of the investment and the coupon rate. That is not consistent with generally accepted accounting principles. And the way that income gets reflected in the financial statements. The unrealized gain, which primarily is the discount on bonds that we purchase, flows into income in the current year. And I am suggesting that we amortize that discount into income for budget purposes. I mean, it's recognized for book purposes, but not for budget purposes right now. So my recommendation is to recognize that the difference between and again, the base income is in Schedule 1, which is in one of the handouts.
And it's also available online in our
And online.
online backup. Shared some schedules that he and his team have prepared.
And the Schedule 2 shows the details of amortizing the discount over the remaining life or the remaining duration of the bond. So if the bond is called, you would not end up in basically the same place. You would have amortized a portion of the discount taken in income. If you sell it, the gain that you realize will be reduced by the amount of the discount that you recognize. And then any amount that's not recognized the current year would be amortized over the remaining life of the bond. So that would result in additional income this year of about $900,000.
Above and beyond what's.
Above and above, yeah, right.
So this is
About
an opportunity on the budget.
So which line would this increase?
Yeah, the investment income, which is the,
44,001?
Yes.
correct.
How much again? I'm sorry.
940,000.
Extra?
Extra.
Yeah, so basically, yeah,
We would,
And that was on the budget.
we went,
Yes.
954,
now, again, it gets reflected in fund balance right now.
if we don't do this, we will have a surplus of that amount.
Right.
That's what will happen.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
get it. Which is your point, the last
Yeah.
one, I said, we always have surplus.
The other thing I would say, just, I've talked to Tom about that, so I think this is a good idea. I don't know why we weren't budgeting the full yield of our bond holdings in the past, but I gather that it was concern that there would be some sort of potential change in what our yield would be. But the reality of what we're doing, based on what I've heard, is that we buy bonds, we hold the bonds.
You want them to
The
mature.
minute we hold them in maturity, therefore, the minute we buy them, we know exactly what we're gonna make. And what we're doing right now is we're only budgeting for a portion of the yield. We're budgeting for the interest income that'll accrue. We're not budgeting for the other portion of the yield, which is the accretion of discount. And so like typically if we were talking to like, BlackRock, what's the bond portfolio gonna make this year? They'd tell you what the yield's gonna be on it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take out part of it.
Right.
If we were going around and trading this stuff, you'd say, okay, maybe let's be more conservative and only budget the interest we think will accrue. That's not what's happening. So again, we're just gonna land up with another surplus. Why don't we just align our forecast with what has to do with the budget?
With the actuals.
For the, yeah.
So
And
we budget with the actuals.
yeah, I mean, we are taking yield that will be realized later, and we're pulling it into this year. But again, there's not risk that we're not getting that. And to me, that I've never understood why we end up with these surpluses when we can just do it like this. So I would be very much in favor of it. But again, I don't know the history of why we stopped doing it or why we didn't do it in the past.
Just a question, I see on this page, the 945 for an increase in revenue. Is that line is not reflected on page 83?
Correct.
So we'd be adding that into.
That's what I'm sticking to now, yeah.
Okay.
Which
That makes sense to me.
definitely at the end of the year, if we don't do it this way, that'll be a surplus,
Great.
guaranteed.
Just,
Why I'm just curious, what was the rationale that it wasn't there?
I can speak, and maybe Jim wants, I don't think, first time I ever recall looking at interest income like this was when this Charles Ford, Jim. I think that's when we started really focusing on. I don't agree, disagree with that.
I mean, also interest rates started going up significantly. So we really started looking at
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
start going really up.
But
What is the negative for doing this amortization?
There's no negative. I mean, for book purposes, you're gonna book it, you're gonna realize it. The only negative is that for budget purposes, you're creating a gap that otherwise could have been filled.
the negative is that if we put this into the budget, this 900,000, well, flip the coin. If we don't put this in, and everything goes exactly as we expect, we'll have a $900,000 surplus. If we say, oh, we're gonna recognize this, let's put it in the budget, we're gonna have zero surplus related to this item. That's
Just better budgeting.
Over the years, as you start buying bonds, so I mean, what's driving part of this is that we have some bonds that were purchased at large discounts. Therefore, a large part of the yield is actually attributable to that accretion discount, right? As we go forward and buy bonds, you don't know what you're gonna buy them at, right? So, in the future, you might have different forecasts going forward. So this isn't gonna happen every year, right? But this year, it's the way to do it. So the risk of doing it would be, okay, well, what if you sell the bond early? Right? Then you've missed budget and he has to make a correction. The reality is we don't do that. It's sort of the exception of selling the bond because we're able to meet our liquidity needs based on tax revenue, based on the actual maturity schedule of our existing holdings. We don't have to do it. A and B, Tom can choose what he sells if he has to.
What happens with the bonds that are called?
Bonds that are called, similar
Call it,
selling.
you're gonna get the face value of the bonds, so you still have the delta between what you paid for it and what it's called at.
If
When
you,
it's called, it's gonna be a face value, it's gonna,
if you have a discounted bond, okay, so the bonds that are callable were mostly bought at premiums. But if you, let's say you, if you sell a bond early that you bought at a discount, what happens in that amortization is that you actually get more of it, early. If it gets called, you've underestimated the accretion, you've overestimated the premium that you're amortizing.
Yeah, it accelerated.
Yeah.
On the bond premiums that we get on some of these, right? Because I think this year there was like, last year, it was like $2.5 million, right? Bond premiums
that we sold
that we
of.
received that would normally go into debt service fund.
But yeah, those are bonds we sold, so on those,
Yeah.
we amortize, it was like
Over
this.
3 years, that bond for.
It's right,
that
to
bond-
reduce the interest costs, right.
We're still doing that.
Correct. Except if you get a premium on a band, you take it in 1 year.
1 year on the bands, yeah, yep.
Just for instance, in terms of the discount, there's one bond that matures on July 1st, and the discount is $200,000, so that's income you recognize. So,
Okay. So we can increase that 945.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then we have to get to 6 million.
aside from this recommendation, prior to this adoption of this process, what's in the proposed budget as printed is 9 million. Can you take us through that number? Is that just?
yeah, that's
just
on
the-
Schedule 1.
Okay.
So again,
Oh, I
what's,
see it. Yeah.
so what has happened, the way we got to the 9 million is we looked at the estimated value of the portfolio, looked at the bonds that's in the portfolio, and bonds that mature beyond the fiscal year, you simply take the coupon rate times the face of the bond. For the bonds that mature during the fiscal year, take the accrued interest plus the principal and reinvest it at an assumed return rate of 3.5%.
Okay.
Now, one thing that in terms of getting to the current budget for fiscal 27, we do assume that there'll be a reduction in the interest rate, 25 basis points.
Yeah.
So that's a change from fiscal 26.
So that's why the number went down to some degree.
So is that, you're assuming 3.5 then?
3.25, yeah, for reinvestment rate.
3.25?
This is on our bond portfolio. What about the interest income on our daily, our check?
Right now, it's paying on Schwab, it's paying close to 4%. Yeah, that's all on the schedule here. It's all baked into the nine.
No, that hasn't really gone down that much.
No, it hasn't. So M&T's
It's like last year.
rate is a lot lower. They're below 3.
We keep the money there or we
Well,
reality?
You know, you gotta keep a fair amount there because of the
Oh, because the.
insurance needs, you got.
And I apologize. Go ahead.
The next line down, I think I should know that, and I don't know why, but the change in market valuation. Why did that stop after in 26?
Well, that's when you stop recognizing the appreciation in investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We decided to do
What
that.
happens is this is like, let's say you buy a bond at a discount, okay? And let's say it's $2 million and it's $500,000. Okay, so as you approach par, the value of the bond converges at par value. You paid $1.5 million, you're gonna get $2 million. That gets treated as unrealized, that gets treated as unrealized gains and then it's realized. So that's that change in market valuation that you see. Now you're pulling that accretion and putting it into the actual income. That's the.
So just so I'm clear, is this 4,377 from 2025 actuals, is that the unrealized gain that's
Yes.
sitting in
Yes.
our debt service reserve account?
It was 4 points.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
4,378.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4,377.
Correct.
Okay. Puzzle pieces are coming together. Yes, Ms. Ruggiero.
Just a question, following up on what you were saying, Shane, and the question that Jim asked. So we stopped budgeting for this, and it looks like year to date right now, we're at 825,000. And,
Where's that?
Looking at the.
There's-
rate.
that's
Yeah.
market valuation, the actual, is 824.
Oh, yeah, right. So we book it when we go through the quarter. We say, here's the investment income. And we disclose it as an item that's in the budget. So it's- we
So I
book
guess
it
my
as
only
that.
question is,
Yeah, we
so
book
we're
it.
at 824,
That was the first quarter. That's in the first quarter
correct? And we were at 4 million.
for the year.
Isn't this the same kind of logic as the 900?
Yes.
45? Why wouldn't we want to bake something in here?
Because the 4 million is the difference at the end of the year.
Yep.
In addition to the 900,000 that we recognize, there still will be a difference. Okay, because you're only recognizing a portion. So you have a bond that's 3 years and the discount is $1 million. You'll recognize the third every year. You're gonna recognize 300,000 this year. So you still will have an additional 700,000 to recognize.
So the number's gonna go up, to at least 1.5 million.
It's just gonna be, if you don't do it for budget purposes, you're gonna have $1 million at the end of the year. Okay? If you do it for budget purposes, you're gonna recognize a third. But when you do the financial statements, you still have a difference that hasn't been recognized. So for book purposes, you recognize that additional 700,000. And then when you do the budget.
Isn't this gonna be,
assuming
gonna end up in surplus then?
It's gonna end up in
So why
surplus,
don't we
but then
throw $1 million in there.
because, I mean, basically, Ray, the way the accounting, it's over the life of the bond because technically you can sell that bond in the second year. So you don't realize something that may not realize in the future.
So a portion of the bond, there's interest that actually accrues during the year.
Correct.
And then the other part is accretion of the discount that eventually, when it matures, you get that money.
But we have it down as a 0 and we're gonna, I mean, we
I think all she's saying is that the way we do it currently now is we only record the actuals and even though we know, he just said, we know there's gonna be a number there at the end of the year.
the same logic as
don't
the
budget it.
945.
We don't budget, even this 945 that we're
It's gonna
putting
be
in the line above, we're at least budgeting that.
Correct.
But the stuff that he says we're not budgeting, that's gonna show up on this line next year as an actual, she's saying, why don't we budget
Why
for
would we want to
that?
throw $1 million there?
Because you may, for some reason, say, I've got to sell that bond next year. And you realize this year or something should apply to a future year.
You're basically you're only budgeting the portion of the yield that you can attribute to this year.
Yeah, the fiscal year 27 impact, not the
Yeah,
whole
right.
life of the.
So let me just ask you from actual numbers, what do you think that actual number is gonna be for 44,005 for this year? What do you, just
All
ballpark?
right, it would be, right now, it would be the difference between the cost of the bond and the discount. So it would be,
I think even if you threw 500,000 in, it's conservative.
yeah, but you wouldn't, if you do that, then the budget is gonna be different for financials because you can't, for financial statement purposes.
So just stay with my thought.
Yeah, I know what you
Just
said.
give me a number,
Uh,
close as you can to what I think that number is gonna look like for 26.
We just brought up 5 just for the first 2 quarters.
That was for, that could be for 07.
well, based on, based on the value of the bonds right now, it was, I think 140,000. An additional amount for next year. Because the problem with next year is you have a lot of premium that's getting amortized that goes the other way. So you're looking at a net number, a net change.
But Jim, are you talking about fiscal year 26 or 27?
I was really just trying to see how it was gonna go from 26 to 27.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like we've in the past just kind of let this flow through and not budgeted for it, and it
Putting a
hits our
huge
actual.
surplus.
And now the proposal is that we don't do that for at least 945,000, and we're putting that into this investment income line. And so I was also hearing that we're not putting it all there, so there's still gonna be something else. I'm trying to get an idea of how much you think that still something else is gonna be for 27.
Right now, it's 100, the net amount is, well, the 900 is for 27. And if you're doing that today, it would be, a little bit more, I guess. But the total amount that's available right now that has not been amortized is 1,042,000. And again, that's based on looking at the remaining life of the bonds. And a big chunk of that, the duration ends in fiscal 27, so that's how you get to the 940. And then you have a net difference, because you have some large premiums that still flow forward. The net difference is 115,000.
Okay, so that number fluctuates quite a bit. I see it's 1,200,000 in 24. We went up to 4,300,000, 25. It sounds like it's 26, you're saying, what, 1,200,000? Okay,
Right now, it would be about
1,200,000. And then what you're saying is we're gonna
That's
do
only halfway through the year.
945. Because.
But it's not, it shouldn't.
945,
You can do,
and then some other number, so that we're not leaving a lot of other money on the table here.
well, you can only, I mean, you should only do this year,
Correct.
the portion that you can amortize this year.
Okay, so I'm not expecting when we look at 27 actual on that line to be a big number.
You're talking about the change in market value?
End of 26.
For 44,005, the number that we don't budget for.
Yeah, it would only be big if you, had a bond mature, you reinvest, and you got a big discount.
And you're not gonna budget for that because you don't know.
You don't know where you're gonna, I mean, the reinvestment assumption is basically assuming that you're buying at par.
Right,
at
correct.
3.25%.
So I think this is a good first step.
Yeah.
See how this goes and then see what it does in a year, but I wouldn't put any more budgeted.
Okay. I had a couple of questions on the revenues. Can you go back up to page 83? The pilot program number, the 5.5 million, that's the stuff that we get
In lieu
payment in
of.
lieu of
In lieu of,
taxes.
right.
And is that all Sacred Heart in Fairfield U, or are there other organizations?
I don't know what's on the list, but it's, the number comes from the state. And it's, if there's a schedule for each town. And I don't, if Fairfield is on there, it's.
Yeah,
We can get your list.
Get any of the.
Anything that doesn't pay tax.
Right.
I just ask because there are a lot of people in town who are making the point that Fairfield U and Sacred Heart, as much as they're great neighbors, they're not paying property taxes. And so I think it would be really good to understand how much the town is getting from Sacred Heart in Fairfield U in lieu of taxes, these payments in lieu of taxes, so that we can, give the residents some comfort that it's, while they're not paying the traditional property taxes like all the other commercial properties and residential properties, we are getting, a good portion, a good number.
From the state.
And
Right.
that's a state formula. I think
Right.
historically, they probably have underfunded it. The other answer to your question is the universities pay a lot for the WPCA operations.
Yeah.
That's a huge.
They do get it, they get it. Yeah, Bill.
And just to add to that, both universities do own property that they do pay property taxes on to the extent they rent those properties out. There's a bunch of house, North Benson, for example, that Fairfield U owns, and they do pay property taxes on that. We could probably find out what that is from the taxes.
I think the other value is just economic development, which the
Of
student
course.
and their employees all bring into the town.
Yeah.
There'd be lots of restaurants that would close down.
Of course.
Not,
No, they are,
students go there.
they are an economic generator for sure.
And
Absolutely.
I went there at Sophie, I went to Sophie.
No.
And I thought I was at Fairfield University itself. I think I was for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Fairfield University sent out their impact study.
That was great.
It's incredible.
Oh my God, it was
I
great. That
asked
was
the
pretty
guys at
impressive.
Sacred Heart for, I think.
Yeah.
So we should ask them again. That's fascinating. reading.
Okay. Any other questions
I'll
on
just
this?
ask a couple. One, Tom or Ben, if you, the rental income line, I know it says town properties and there's probably more there. You have a description, further description of that?
We have a detailed list of each of the properties.
Send that out
Sure.
Yeah.
another year sometime.
This gets truncated. We don't know
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
which.
Yeah.
Well, I have notes too, because I don't.
Yeah. You can just send, I don't need to go through one here tonight.
The problem with this is it's in a separate field and
Yeah,
units, and it would be
we'll
really
do that.
small.
Just a supporting schedule would be great.
There is a schedule.
You just send that.
Yeah.
That would be good. What's the lease revenue Gatsby line that stopped in 25? It was just a change in the Gatsby recognition of income.
That was the implementation of GASB. I don't know if this was, I think it related to, I'm not certain, I think it related to leases for software. I'm not sure really.
Okay. But it brought us revenue, like 24, it brought us $357,000.
That was a new accounting rules.
The WPCU in-kind services, is that for the WPC?
Yeah, WPCA, WPCU.
So we bill them for what our services that are.
Yeah, we look at departments and we make estimates as to the time that we spend working on their projects. And we review that with them and there was a slight issue.
And then let's see, we're getting our parking authority of these revenue. Which is absent some years.
Yeah, Mr. Stark.
Back to Schedule 2 in the packet, the 940,705. The way that's presented, it looks like it's a total of the numbers above it, but
It's a net.
a net of what?
It's a net
Because
of.
if I sum all those numbers, I get 668,000. It looks like it's close to the sum of all the positives. I just think it's a presentation question. It's
Okay.
extremely confusing. I subtracted it.
It's a net of the, it's the net of the items on the,
Plus yeah, what if they amortize premiums and then, or it should total.
It's not.
And are you talking?
Total of all those numbers is 668,000.
Two?
Yeah. Schedule 2 bond discounted premium. I mean, unless we can see it in Excel. and we can-
yeah, I'll send you the Excel.
Yeah, because I could be extracting it poorly, but. And then, and the bond total on the left column doesn't seem to add up either.
Could be a presentation thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the way the print, I printed the Excel. There was some hidden lines in there.
Yeah, that'd be probably good. Oh, there's hidden line.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's probably what's doing it.
Yeah, there are hidden lines.
Mr. Walsh.
Quickly, does in lieu of taxes, the vet exemption, is that the amount that the state's?
I'm sorry, the which?
The in lieu of taxes vet exemption is going up by.
Yeah, that's based on a state statute.
They changed the statute.
Correct. Correct.
Better. Is the same thing true for the town aid road funds? They increased the funding that was available to.
Yeah, and again, that comes right off of the OPM's schedule.
Yep.
There's a schedule that shows the amount that each town gets.
Yep.
And when the preliminary budget comes out, there's a schedule that we use. That generally doesn't change. Some of these might change a little bit.
The governor did make an announcement that he upped the town aid road funds, so towns would do more paving for the roads, and that's what drove that increase.
So you took that into account?
Yes,
But
the
it's
governor
on the
announced
schedule.
it, and then
It's on the schedule.
OPM sent out the schedule saying, here's what Fairfield should expect.
I just wondering why it went up by 30.
Yeah.
Speaking of paving, we'll hear from DPW next week. If I remember correctly, that the annual paving number's down, right?
It's down because of this. We're getting.
No, we've made some just.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't pave in the fall. They decided not to pave because safe streets, and they wanted to make sure that safe street plans were decided before they went out and started paving and didn't have those things. That was a decision that was made. The director said that it was the first day. I was upset because my street didn't get paved in the fall. But they said they were gonna actually make it up and do it all in the spring. So we'll see if that's still the truth.
Right. But with.
I don't see how you can
budget for
possibly do
next year.
fall and spring in one season, but
And,
the roads need it.
right,
Especially after this one.
yeah.
This one.
And I know the town went through the effort to have that third-party study done, make sure that we're not falling behind. We'll graded all of our streets and, I'm looking forward to that conversation with DPW because to the extent that we can find an offset, I'd love to restore that.
The,
I don't want to, we should wait for Frank
Yeah.
because it's part of the delay in terms of looking at all of the streets in terms of having them be complete streets for sidewalks, for bike lanes. We want to make sure that's all taken into consideration, which is why Mill Plain especially got delayed.
Yeah. Understood. Okay, sorry, didn't mean to sidetrack there. Any other questions on revenue?
You guys talked about, did I miss the, where is it, the 48,506, the sale of town and property? Did we talk about that already? Sale of town and property.
55. Yeah, this is office equipment that's not, yeah, it's just
the real
small stuff that's, yeah.
Is that an average of 3 years or something like that? What's the assumption there on why
It's the best guess based on what happens.
There's no like,
There's no scientific,
this isn't one of the things where we take the previous 3 years and average.
basically, yeah.
It's just a swag.
Which basically it's. you
2,000
have-
already.
You have property, you have a desk or a chair that's no longer usable by the department. It's offered for sale to an employee, and if it's not, then it's not to be.
It's not real property.
No. It's the office equipment.
Like a small.
There's not a lot of.
no one buys it, they put it on the side of the road and write free.
Free.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I learned this. If you put anything out and put a sign on it that says free, no one picks it up. But if you put $20 and then someone takes it.
No one picking up, we try to put out shelves, very insulting. Like, you don't want my
Right.
taste.
Anyway, next, we're good on this one? All right. So thank you for taking us through that. And thank you for taking us through and thank you, Mr. Bentley, for spending some time with Tom and his team to kind of really dig into that bond stuff, because I think that's a meaningful change. Okay, next up, I guess, is the debt service fund, right? Do you have backup for that? Did you?
I have the budget book. There's not a lot. What we can provide those is we do have a debt amortization schedule.
Okay.
It basically shows the total amount of the town's debt, which at the end of the fiscal year was, I think, 219 million. We had an additional issue in July, which is 45 million. Then we paid down, we had an amortization of the prior balance. So the net balance now, I think it is, well, I know it's $244 million. So what is on the debt schedule is really just the cost, financing costs for that. It includes the amortization of the debt that's scheduled to be paid in fiscal 27, which is,
You're looking at page 203?
I'm sorry, 203, yeah. So there's, at the top of the page, we assume we will have additional funding next year. The 150,000 is the cost to market that. So those are paid, those are amounts that's paid to investment advisor Phoenix and rating agencies. We have the amortization of the debt that's on the book now, which is the 19.7 million. The amortization of the premiums that we pay, which is the 2.3. So the net principal payment is 17.5 million. And we have interest on the bonds and interest on the ban. So we've also assumed in the budget that we will utilize reserves to offset some of the cost of the financing.
Which is what we did last year, but this year to a lesser amount. And if everyone recalls, the debt service reserve fund is where we temporarily parked our surplus last year, and we've got, well, Mr. Walsh.
We talked earlier on in the process, that we would talk about this tonight, about what is the total amount that is necessary to get rid of the fill pile issues? Where do we stand with those estimates? When is the money gonna start being spent? How much do we need in that fund? Just for the fill pile, from what you guys best knowledge, from speaking to our environmental attorneys, all in.
We had a meeting yesterday with the consultant. I mean, they had provided estimates, I guess, last year, that was about 10.8 million, around $12 million. They are putting together a work plan now to begin looking at next steps. And basically what they're saying now is the best estimate that they have is still around $11 million, but $11 million, which is not much different from what we had last year, but within the next month or so, I think we will be able to have them come in and talk to you in terms of what the plans are for going forward.
But that's based on a cap? Is that the solution, the cap solution?
Well, I don't know what the solution is going to be.
Well, how do you put a price on if you don't know?
Well, again, they are putting together a work plan, and they would have a work plan for, within the next month.
Has that work plan been approved by the state, or they have to get it approved still?
I think that it's been approved by the state.
They've gone through, they've run it by regulatory agencies, but they're still waiting for, in terms of getting a read of what they think will
We have to
be
do
able to read.
I think I asked this last year, but if the state does allow us to do this cap, which is certainly way less expensive than alternative, which was the movement. Will the state allow us to do it over a long period, or do we have to do it over a 3-year period from start to finish? I don't know what the number is. I'm making that up, but like, obviously, if we can stretch that out, it kind of lets the air out of the balloon a little slower. Are there any restrictions in terms of how we could go about executing the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an engineer, and I think we have to wait for them to come in, but basically what they were saying, my understanding is that, once they go through their planning stage, nothing really is going to be done for another year or so. It's the earliest. But I think, again, I'm not an engineer, so I was refer to them. I mean, what?
So we have a potential $11 million expense. What is the total balance of the debt service fund now? How much is not, and I'm not, and I'd like for you, when you give the number, clearly I know that we have to pay on premium towards bond expense over 3 years. So if you take what's in the debt service account minus the amounts that we have to pay for bond premiums and amortize them over 3 years, that shouldn't be part of this.
Right. So,
And you might, so how much is there before the $11 million is gonna be spent? I'm just trying to figure out how much is in there and what we're accounting for and how much might be left.
So we began the year net of debt premium, and again, this is for you. Consider the amount for the fill pile. Was $20 million. $7.9 million was appropriated, I guess, from 23 surplus.
For the fill pile.
For the fill pile.
We have 8 of the 11 or 12 possible remaining liability. We've got 8
Already,
earmarked.
correct.
Okay.
And we used in fiscal 25, 1.1 million of surplus. We've added in 25, 9 million of gross revenue surplus. So that was just, that included the unrealized gains.
That's the 4,378.
So that's a
that we were just talking
4.37, right? And we've transferred $1.5 million of expense surplus. So the net change at the end of 25 was 17 0.5 million. We have in the fiscal 26 budget an assumption that we use 4 million, and that gets us down to 13.4, 13.5. And we have also assumed that for 27, fiscal 27, we will utilize 3 million of surplus to reduce the debt. In the operating budget, we earmarked an additional 4.1 million, which we originally thought we'd be able to get from service fund, which we don't. So we assume that is taken out of debt service. That's a total of 7.1 million. So that would leave 6.3 million. If you add back the unrealized gain that was taken out, then you're at 10.7 million. Now, this does not consider the fact that we still have amounts that we have received or is receivable from those restitution, right? And right now, that's about 2.5 million. So if you add the, if you consider what is in the debt service balance, 10.7 plus the 2.5 million, that's what's available.
That's after paying the 11 million?
That's up 7.9 is out of, so that leaves.
To take 4 off of the
Yeah.
number he just quoted, so it would be if.
But
I
that
heard
would
you-
leave net about 8.
Yeah, if I heard you correctly, we're round numbers 11 million. But it only accounts for 8 million associated with the fill pile. So if the real number is closer to 12, then this 11 million in here would go down to 7.
But you still have that other, those,
Plus the
that reduces.
yeah.
So the net is probably,
Yeah. Okay. So it gives me comfort that if the $12 million number is the right number, we're fine. But
How much were left after the end of that? Because you guys are all.
yeah, there were a lot of numbers. And Tom and I were kind of
Do
playing
we-
with numbers.
Do
So
we have like, with that,
Can we get a
have
spreadsheet?
that,
Yeah, I'd like to get an updated spreadsheet.
like a piece of
sent me,
paper?
you sent me something. Second.
Can we share that?
Yeah.
Tony.
I just want to know
Yeah.
what we have
So-
left. What do we have left over when we come for the 11 million bucks?
Yeah.
Service amounts.
We got the color.
No, this is,
Oh, I did the color.
he saw this, he said put colors on it.
I thought I wasn't supposed to look at it.
General service fund.
He said to put colors on. I'm
So
sorry.
he said put colors.
7 million here.
Yes.
So this is everything I discussed, except this does not include the restitution.
It also doesn't include any increase for the fill pile above the 8 million. So we would have to adjust this here, right? Because
Right. So the 7974, first line up.
Mhm.
That's the now.
That was appropriated, yeah.
We're gonna say 12.
No, that is the 11, the 11 is inclusive of the,
I'm just saying, what are we saying? We need that number to
yeah,
be.
I mean, when you, Matt, you were the other day, is it 11 or
it's
is it
11,
12?
it's 11.
One of those numbers gonna keep going up if we wait.
Well, again, the last report they gave had 10.8, so they're saying 11.
So 11.
Let's use 11.
11 it is. Well, I think that's good news that we got word back. That's the first time I'm hearing that we got word back that they've accepted this as a solution. I mean,
Well, it's not a solution, no, it's a
Right now,
solution now.
okay.
that's,
We're not hearing that.
We're not saying.
Well,
Way.
Yeah.
And if
That
it
was insane.
Yeah, that's a work
it's a
plan.
work,
They
it's
have-
a work plan right
Okay.
now.
And the actual expense may be greater if they run over.
Well, when they do that
Well, I
work
think
plan.
that once they start doing the work, I mean, this is subject to change, but based on the information they have now and the testing they have done to date and the conversations they've had with the regulatory agencies, they still feel comfortable with this number.
Right.
At this point in time.
But if we wanted to make sure that there was an adequate amount of money held back in the debt service reserve, just in case they run over or just in case they're never paid, we probably should make sure that this account has a few extra million in it or something, some number.
Extra number?
Yeah.
10.706 at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's extra funds that are in the debt service account after paying, it was $11 million.
No, because this was put together before the 11 million number was known. The only thing on this list, Jim, that is designated for the fill pile is that first number, the 7974. So if
They had 3 million.
Number is 11, then you got to deduct $3 million.
We had $3 million less, so it would be $7 million of
And then,
extra.
right, and
And
then
you have the money from the
it
restitution.
also doesn't include any benefit from the restitution, but let's for this purpose, let's leave that at 0. Yeah, 7.7.
So that would be potential to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
So last year we pulled out cover the, take down the burden to the taxpayer. Is there any appetite to do the same if we're looking at this? You did-
it's in the 3 million.
I see 3 million. Why wouldn't
Go
we
to
do
4.
4?
Well, we may have to do, we have, because we have, we'd assume, as I said, we would be able to pull money from the internal service fund, but that's not gonna be there, so I've indicated here that we may want to take down.
We're gonna have 7 million
Going out for this
of today.
operating.
Yeah.
budget.
So it's the 3 million that was budgeted in, an additional 4.15 that was assumed to come out of the internal service fund, but that's not available. So now it's coming out of this. So it's we're really in your budget, you're proposing a $7.15 million reduction in the reserve to offset the burden on the taxpayer.
Right.
So the line 58600 shouldn't be 3 million, it should be 7 million, right?
No, because the other 4.15 is on page 60.
Oh, it's somewhere.
Yeah.
60 or
The
wherever.
medical benefits.
But we could put this at 4 if we.
Good, yeah. We were comfortable that 7.7 was enough. Yeah. Okay. Is that everything on there? I think that is, right?
Question, where, I don't remember the number, I know we just talked about it a couple ago, but at the end of the second quarter, what was the projected surplus?
Around 2 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought, around $2 million.
Yeah, and this assumes nothing for this year.
I was gonna say that line is not in here.
Zero.
Should really
Puts it
be,
back at almost 10.
And then question mark next to it, 'cause
Well,
it's gonna be
if you look at, right in the middle of the page, fiscal year 26 surplus assumed 0.
I always say it, thank you, thank you. And you got the same line for 27.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Sorry, could you just clarify something for me?
Yeah.
So I, just looking on the sheet that was handed out, the fiscal year 27 usage, you know, it has the 3 million, which I see on page 203.
Yep.
And then you're saying that 4.1 is
It's
in,
in medical benefits.
Yeah,
It's an
so if you
offset to
turn,
medical benefits.
if you turn to page 67, just above life insurance, there's supplemental contribution health insurance, 4150 for this year. That's coming out of this account, as well as the 3 million in the finance department. So 7.15 comes out.
Could that number change? So you know, the percentage is gonna be 15.28 or down.
The insurance,
The 4150?
The 52101. Yeah, 4150. That's a firm.
This number here, in the supplemental contribution, is that a hard number or is that a firm number?
it's, yeah, yes.
so, just for you.
And we'll get into internal service fund in detail.
Well, that's what I was just gonna ask you.
Yeah.
'Cause I kind of, it's hard to talk about one,
Yeah, no,
one fund
you know-
without the other, but we just, big pictures, the other one.
Well, we did mention the fact that we had, reports come in for reserve requirements, and those have increased by $4 million in the last few months. And as a result, the internal service, balance is about $2 million.
Which is all right.
Yeah.
Compared to where it's been.
And it's low because one of the increase in those reserves and the transfer of $3 million heart and hypertension from the general fund, into the internal service fund.
I really thought the balance of the internal service fund would be too high. I remember our previous chairwoman saying, No, this is way too high. We gotta start using
To
it.
your credit, you question.
It always changes.
Yeah.
Just go, there's cycles of this stuff.
You wax it.
Well, and
Yeah.
we,
It's when you think you're doing great
well, and we,
and then you start getting whacked.
and we did this in steps, right? So for years, the internal service fund had contributions to it in the operating budget.
Yep.
Then I remember my first year on the board, Lori suggested that it was overfunded.
Yep.
And we said, we're not gonna take from it, but we're gonna not contribute.
Contribute towards it.
We did that for a couple of years. And then last year, they thought, oh, it's still overfunded, so now let's release some of it. And that was the 3.6. And then, this year was planned to release some more, but with the new analysis, there's just not enough money in there. So that's where it's gotta come.
God forbid you use up your internal service fund. Does that mean that expenses that would normally funded from that fund just have to that year's operating expenses, or can you take it from this
Take it at fund
service, or you can't move one to the other?
Well,
You have that
balance.
ability.
Take it at fund balance, and that's what our fund balance says.
Yeah.
Our fund balance says we can take money out specifically to fund the internal service fund.
That's true. Yep. But if we have, like, look, in reality, the town has had the luxury of enjoying surpluses for a number of years. And because we've had some uncertain expenses like Penfield, like the fill pile, we've, as a board, have elected to put that into the debt service fund. It's really a rainy day fund, so we could pull it from there as well. It doesn't have to come out of the general fund. It can come out of this. We still have 7.7 million in here. And look, it's nice to have that as a cushion, right?
I mean, the flip side is it's taxpayers' money.
Exactly. Which
Who are
is
we to
why,
decide
why
to
I,
leave that there for a rainy day fund when taxpayers are very,
yeah, which is why I
Especially
I
this year.
feel very comfortable adopting the change in methodology on the investment income and releasing over $7 million from this account this year. I think that's a really,
That's why we were contributing to the internal service fund for years, because it had a ton of money in there.
yeah, and we didn't want to overtax the taxpayer. Yeah. Okay, well, it seems like it's coming together.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions for Tom and his team?
On this.
All right, well,
Thank you for preparing that.
And then, all right, well, with that, I think that takes us to public comment, not seeing anybody else there. Yes,
We done with the meeting?
there's nothing else on the agenda?
Fund balance.
I just, can I have a moment
Of course.
Before I came here, I sent you guys an email, which you had tonight.
Okay.
I think the first select woman knows this. I was trying to see what constituents were writing about the education budget. Because I wasn't seeing a lot of stuff coming in, but I'm like, let me see what people are writing. In the course of doing that, I found an email that came in last Thursday to give you some sense of how long it's been since in my email account. That I have now forwarded to all of you. Okay? And it is an email that was sent to myself. I don't know whether you guys got it, so I'm like, part of this is a question.
Mhm.
But email that was sent to myself, Ruggiero, Ms. Kupchik. It said that in the email that it was sent to first select woman, our HR director. I don't know whether you guys got this, but it's an email that was sent to me by a woman I don't know, never talked to in my entire life, I don't even know who she is, but she was an employee that was terminated, I guess, from the town. And there's two documents. One's a 25-page document that she makes all sorts of allegations that are kind of, not for us to investigate, but first select woman to deal with. There's some stuff about, I want you all to read it. We could possibly talk about it, but stuff we've talked about, like, she's from HR. Some of it has to do with the payroll system and the report that we got, not saying we got an act about that. Actually, an allegation which I don't want to talk about.
Okay.
That is potentially, if everything she says is true, which I'm not saying it is, these are just really accusations. They could be wild accusations, so I don't really want to even talk about it in public. But could be a crime, a fraudulent crime in the state of Connecticut. So I sent it to the police chief. But I just want to let you know I sent it because my thought on this, and Tom Flynn and I've had to deal with this in the past, where someone sends an allegation and he and I, Tommy, well, you got to send that to the police. You got to send it to the first. If we get it and you do nothing about it,
You have to do something.
You have to do something.
do nothing about it, we're part of, if this thing blows up, we're part of like pushing it under the rug. So I'm not saying that we have to deal with this stuff in here. There might be a couple of things and maybe we could talk about that or go into executive session and talk about it, about what, if we wanted to address it. But I just want to let you know why I got it. This just came in. I don't know whether you guys get.
I didn't.
It's not- I'm looking at you guys, so you guys seem very confused, so I'm not thinking that you guys got it. But I sent it to our clerk group, just because I know she's the clerk, because I consider it to be once, I got it to my Board of Finance address.
Yeah.
Ms. Ruggiero got it to the address that she normally gets stuff to. I just thought it was a communication.
I think any board member gets anything like that has a duty to forward it to the select person's office.
I did.
And I know you did, and that's what you should do.
Yes, and I sent it to the HR, our HR director. The new one does not have an email address online. I checked. The HR all they have is the HR at whatever. So I just want to let you know, that's why I said, I'm not saying that we need to really do anything, but I agree with John. I think if we get something and someone says that something might have happened, you just can't sit on it, or you just have to push it along.
Yeah, and I think something.
We're not an investigative body. We have certain responsibilities.
I think something like that happened a year or two ago with Chris DeWitt and Lori Charlton had both received something and then they took a similar action. And I can't remember what the topic
So
was.
I just
but-
wanted to let everybody know when you finally see it, because I wanted to get it out as soon as I saw it, and that's one of the reasons I was late.
And without getting into details, is it the type of thing that we need to address as part of the budget? Is it a regular meeting item? Is it a not?
I want to read it again. I skimmed through it because one of the documents is 25 pages typed.
Demand letter. It's a demand letter. She's got 4 demands.
No, the other document is a lot longer. It's
Yeah, well-
25 pages.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well-
you might want to just take a peruse through it.
All right.
Thank you. Whatever. I
Appreciate
just
it.
wanted to let everybody know why I sent it.
All right. And then just as a point of reference, we have 2 meetings next week. We're not Tuesday, Thursday, we're Monday, Thursday. Because of in respect for St. Patrick's Day. And also, if I'm not mistaken, Prue, on Monday, we are at the fire training center.
In the big room.
Oh, in the big room.
Oh.
And full disclosure, my day job is taking me to Phoenix on Sunday. I won't be able to attend on Monday, but John will run the meeting on Monday. There are some executive session items that I won't participate in, so I'll have to get a debrief afterwards, but I will see everyone next Thursday.
I won't be here Thursday.
Okay.
All week.
All right.
Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second from Rob. Thank you very much. Good meeting.